Alrighty, folks. Hello and welcome to Getting in Trouble with John Theodore, Episode 3. Tonight's guest, Colin Martin, also known as Amsteriga in Twitch chat. Fellow iRacer, been a long time viewer and fan of the channel. This show is where we talk about all kinds of stuff and potentially get in trouble by saying anything on the internet because everything's controversial.
That's right.
Yeah, doesn't matter what you say, someone's going to be angry at you for it, even if you point out the fact that people get angry. We got our drinks in hand tonight. Colin, what are you drinking tonight?
Just the old cola. I'm a sucker for advertisement.
Nice, good deal. And by the way, what's the proper pronunciation of your name? I always want to
Oh,
get that
it's
right.
Kalen. Kalen. Yeah.
Kalen?
Kalen, yeah.
Okay, cool. Kalen Martin. I've been pronouncing that wrong the whole time.
That's
Kalen
good.
Martin.
No, sorry. A lot of people do. It's an
Yeah.
Irish
What?
name, so a lot of people
Oh, it's
don't.
Irish.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. And are you located in the States or overseas?
I'm in Canada, actually. I
Canada.
emigrated to Canada 5 years ago from Ireland. And then, set up shop here. So I'm enjoying it.
Good deal. How old were you when you came over from Ireland?
Um, the first time I went was 2012 I got a 1 year visa, working visa, and that was when I was 23, I think 22, 23.
Mm-hmm.
And then I stayed for a year here. Didn't know anybody, just went for it, and met my fiance actually the first time I was here. So about 2 months before I had to leave to go back to Ireland, I had to. Well, obviously my visa expired, so. But we did a long-term distance relationship, and came back again in 2014 after getting another visa for 2 years, and then been here ever since with my PR card. So
Good deal.
yeah,
Hey,
it's gone well.
that's awesome. You guys were able to make that work. Long distance can be really tough.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was tough. Obviously, like you got Skype and you can message, and it ain't too bad. She did visit me after I think like 6 or 7 months to see what Ireland's like, and that really helped as well. And it was
Mm-hmm.
only a few months later before I got to go back to Canada. So, but I think it's if you can kind of struggle through that and with the long distance thing and kind of have the strength to do it. I'm sure like nothing can stop you in your relationship if once it goes well. So, once you are together and stuff. So it's definitely advice for people out there that if you do make it on either side, then it's definitely nothing else can stop you. So.
Good deal. What's been harder? Was it harder when it was long distance, or is it harder now that the distance portion is over and you're actually located in the same area?
I don't know, of course, like long distance is harder. Yeah, for sure.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's good. It would be bad if
um,
it probably wouldn't be a good thing if they were the
try
other
to
way
cut that
around.
out, please. Yeah, I can't have that going on YouTube or on Twitch, but no, it's
No,
definitely
you got the
long
right
distance is
answer,
hard.
so
Yeah,
no worries.
I'm under pressure, and it's only like 2 minutes in.
Right. See, we told you we were going to get you in trouble tonight. I don't.
Yeah, getting grilled.
No false advertising. um. So let me see. I'm actually gonna just remembered that I've got chat up over there, so I'm gonna throw up a black background here behind chat. Live production, folks. I don't have a producer. This is all self-produced. So sometimes it's very raw, but there we go. That'll help with the chat. We still got our internet browser here for if we need to look stuff up. Cool. So, yeah, whiskey tonight, Spitz. You know I'm a whiskey drinker, man. It's always the whiskey bottles. um, good deal. So, I guess you kind of touched on it, but any advice for anyone else who is currently trying to make a long distance relationship work or exploring the possibility of a long distance relationship because they know that they've got someone that that seems special, but they know that there's a period of distance coming up.
Yeah. It's all about the effort. You need to put effort in. It's going to be work. You don't want to maybe after work or socializing with other your friends. You can't just leave her aside. You need to start messaging practically every day. Let you know you care for her and stuff like that, and and also try and plan, your birthdays. Try to send something over to her house, and vice versa. And also, if you can try to get a visit, sometimes it's not possible, but let's say if it's in America, you're from the West Coast and your partner's in the East Coast in New York or something like that, try and make a visit. So then there's something to look forward to for both of you in the future. So the days don't seem that long if you've got something planned ahead, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. That's all good advice. Yeah, I mean, I think I had a long distance relationship when I was in college, and
Right.
we made it work for a little while. I, I think at the end of the day that one, didn't work. It wasn't because of the distance necessarily. It was just that we grew apart from each other, and like any relationship, if it, I've come to understand more that generally speaking, when a relationship does end, it's because it should end. There's no
Right.
clearer evidence that a relationship should end than the fact that it does.
Mm.
Regardless of the there can be particulars of different reasons and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I have come to the mind that when it ends, it's irrefutable proof that it was supposed to. Even if the particular details and reasons of why it ended might be beyond comprehension at that time.
Mm. Yeah, it's not for everybody. Like Warren says in the chat, long distance relationships don't work from my experience. I mean, yeah, I think it's we didn't even plan because to come do the long distance at the start, because I met her like 2 months before I had to go back to Ireland. So it was a real kind of snap decision. Shall we do this? And it's going to be difficult, but we've only got to know each other for 2 months before I had to leave. So that made it even harder because I don't know her for that long. So, but you're still, if you can still message every day and text and all that, and get to know each other as we're going, and yeah, I think like I said, it's more about the effort. If you're putting effort into it, sometimes that it does work out, but for some people it just doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Basically.
For sure. So let's see. I guess let's go ahead and jump in. We did have one topic that we were going to.
Yeah.
That I sent over to you. Let me see if I can get back to that message real quick. But it was Kevin Harvick on the firing back at NASCAR on the qualifying. And the statements that Steve O'Donnell made. So while I pull up the article itself, I'm going to let you start on that with your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So what I guess what's your general feeling about what's been going on with NASCAR and their qualifying procedures so far this year?
It's not been great. Let's be honest. I think that's like 99% of the NASCAR viewership probably agrees with that. A couple of things is that, first of all, his comments for being a VP of the sport is totally unprofessional. Like attacking the drivers like that is totally out of order.
NASCAR's had a few missteps like that this year where they've really made it, because there was this one wasn't Steve O'Donnell, but early in the season when Kyle Busch gave what I thought was a fairly candid assessment of how much easier these cars were to drive and how it didn't take as much still to drive the cars with the decreased horsepower and increased drag, which it really doesn't take a rocket science to understand that if you increase the aerodynamic downforce and drag of the car while decreasing the horsepower, that you're going to make the cars easier to drive.
Yeah.
So you had the weird shot back at him that, even though I think that there was definitely a way to interpret that wasn't him making a threat to Kyle Busch, but it was a really bizarre comment that was made from someone who was a really senior position in NASCAR, and then now you had Steve O'Donnell basically insinuating that the drivers were intentionally sabotaging qualifying because they didn't like it and didn't want it to work.
Or they don't want to be the first one to be the head draft guy.
Well, that's
For everybody
true.
else.
They don't want to be the first one to draft, but Steve O'Donnell's comments made it seem like there was actually some kind of conspiracy among the drivers to make the product as bad as possible because
Right.
they didn't want to do group qualifying periods. So there's a difference between what I think's been going on, which is that it's pretty clear in this format when draft takes effect, the last car that is able to get the run on the train can get the biggest advantage for a one lap speed. Obviously, it doesn't work that
Yeah.
way if you're drafting in a race because you're in last and you want to be in first because in a
Yeah.
race you're not measuring lap time. But in a contest where you're trying to measure the best hot lap time, anyone who's done, even a little bit, probably even doing NASCAR heat stuff, but if you messed around a little bit with iRacing and gone and done practice times at Daytona or Talladega, it's pretty easy to figure out that the way that you get to the top of a practice board is get a big run on an existing pack of cars
Yeah.
and draft up on them, and within that one lap everyone will turn a quick lap, you will turn a slightly quicker lap. So I don't think it's any more than that, which is that no one wants to be the first guy out. Everyone's trying to be the last guy out. Steve O'Donnell's insinuation was that the drivers weren't doing that, but rather they were doing things that they knew would look goofy to get the fans riled up to try to lobby for getting single car qualifying to happen again, which I think that we've all been lobbying for that because we've seen how this doesn't work. But I do think I agree with you. I think it was a really unprofessional and completely out of line allegation to come from someone in O'Donnell's position to be slandering the drivers in that way and the teams. It does speak to. I think a lot of the stuff that's swirling around NASCAR right now it's exemplary and demonstrative of what happens when stuff isn't going well. Because the reality is that right now it's just not going well. We all know it, and it's been talked about a lot. Attendance is down, viewership is down. I've been at a number of different companies when things start going poorly, and when things are going badly, this kind of stuff, this taking shots and firing back and forth and sniping, that is a product. That's a symptom of what happens when stuff just isn't going well. It's I guess it's the next evolution of what happens.
Yeah,
because it's taken a few years for us to get to this point where you have the sanctioning body and the drivers just firing shots at each other at a level that I don't think I've ever seen in NASCAR prior to this point. There have definitely been times, when guys like Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt, Mark Martin, especially after being wrecked out at a restrictor plate race which is kind of the chief example of drivers being put into a box that they really don't want to be putting and forced to race in a way that they don't want to race. Understanding that, NASCAR was kind of put in a box where it was either let them race in a very dangerous manner or do something that they really didn't want to do either to address safety concerns. But, there were some pretty golden interview moments of drivers firing at NASCAR or spouting off at NASCAR after wrecking in restrictor plate races. But, I don't remember it getting to this level. This stuff that went on, recently with Kevin Harvick and Steve O'Donnell really is at another level.
And I find that because I think it was brought up in our Discord chat over the Bristol race with Keselowski being penalised at the end, and you were saying it's because the rule book, like people are saying, the rules are too much for NASCAR, or it's They have to, penalize everything, something slight that happens or goes awry, or someone's trying to get an advantage. But that's why the rule book is so gigantic, because there's crew members out there, there's drivers out there who want to take advantage of any way they can to be more successful and to get ahead. So with this, I could take it back to this draft qualifying area. This is another reason why nobody really want to go out first, because if you take that, you're going to be that head guy. But if you wait back and let someone else do it, then there's no rules about it. So let's just waste time here, guys, at the pits and wait for some Joe Blogs to go out first. But there was no rule against that in the NASCAR rule book. So that's why it's a bit,
right.
You can't really blame the drivers to say, like, oh, how come they're waiting in the pits? It's like, well, here, listen, we can do this if we want to.
Exactly.
There's no law against it. There's no rule against it.
Just like how you can't blame Frankie Stoddard for calling Jeff Burton in when they had the pit stall for picking the pit stall right before the finish line, and then calling Jeff Burton into pit on the last lap in the All-Star race when NASCAR made a goofy rule that you had to pit, but forgot to add a clarification that the pit stop had to be not on the last lap, so that someone couldn't gain an unfair advantage by picking the pit stall right before the start-finish line, doing their pit stop, and then just rolling across the line, taking the segment win at a speed of like 10 miles per hour.
That actually happened in Formula One as well. In '98, Michael Schumacher won the British Grand Prix, and he got a penalty for overtaking somebody on the yellow flag. And the stewards gave the team the penalty notice, but it was like after a certain time limit, because you have to, if there is a penalty to be served, there has to be a window of where the team has to be notified of that penalty. So it's between like 20 to 30 minutes, I believe, or 45 minutes or something. But it was after that window. So that's strike one for stewards, because now that penalty is null and void, really. But what Ferrari was clever enough to do is that they brought Schumacher on the last lap to bring him in to do the stop and go penalty. So he had to stop in the box in his pit stall for 10 seconds, and then you're free to go. But they were allowed to bring him in on the last lap. So he crossed the finish line as his pit stall is like another 50 meters ahead. So the race is over. Yeah, he's taking his penalty after the race.
Wow.
And he actually won the race. So there was an appeal by McLaren, who were going for the championship that time, and the three stewards, head stewards, actually resigned over that, and Ferrari were allowed to keep their race win. But the guy, Mika Hakkinen, came second, actually took the checker flag, because the guy was waving the checker flag at the second place guy. So yeah, it was crazy. So it was good. That's what I'm saying. There's any loophole out there. Teams are looking for to get that what would you say, competitive edge on someone else. You know?
They're competing to win.
Yeah.
They're competing to win. And that's what makes all competitive sport interesting and compelling to watch, is watching people try their hardest to beat one another, to come out on top in a competitive field. The rule book is there to ensure that the competition happens in a fair and not ridiculous-looking manner. Like, so for example, one rule that is pretty well understood is that when you're racing around a race course, that you have to complete the laps on the actual course that's defined. You know, like in the Rolex 24. You can't try to complete more laps than someone else by running the NASCAR oval and just skipping the road course bits. Oh, we lost Kalen.
Oh, yeah.
And you're back.
I'm back. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that every rule in that rule book, and I get that it's long. I get it. I get that the U.S. tax code is long. I get that if you took every law that's been added to the United States law, or Canadian law or Irish law, same thing. Since those countries were established and founded under their most recent charter or constitution, whatever it is, the law book only gets larger for the same reason that the rule book in NASCAR continues to get larger, is that as time goes on, teams figure out, gray areas to exploit within the existing rules, and then it is incumbent upon the sanctioning body or governing body to clarify those gray areas so that all teams understand what is and isn't acceptable. Because when a team's exploiting a gray area, what happens is a discussion in the garage area between the teams. It's like, hey, we're trying to do things straight up and by the book. They're doing something that seems to, if not be against the letter of law, definitely against the spirit in which the rule was put in place. So what's the deal? Can we do what they're doing, or is what they're doing in fact actually against the rule? We need a clarification of the rule. So NASCAR or the sanctioning body clarifies the rule, and the rule book gets longer.
Yeah. Another thing with this qualifying draft thing is, like, let's get back to basics here. What is the reason? Like, why do drivers qualify? It's because you see who's the fastest. And if you're doing a draft session, the guy that's maybe should be like 20th is going to maybe end up on pole, because this draft is going to give you, there's no kind of baseline. We don't know what the baseline is for that driver.
Right. Now, to play devil's advocate here on this one could argue that having them qualify in a group format versus single car qualifying does allow them to demonstrate speed in an environment that's closer to the one that they're going to be racing in, because the draft is going to be coming into play during the race. However, especially in NASCAR and on oval track racing, passing is substantially easier. Track position is much less rigidly locked than it is in Formula One or in road course racing.
Yeah.
So qualifying is literally just a means of setting the field and determining who gets to pick the first pit stall. So with that in mind, I really do think it's like qualifying is not and has never been a major viewership draw. That's why it happens, or it used to happen on Friday during the workday when no one was at home to watch it.
Right.
It's literally just a thing to set the field. Hardcore fans like myself might set a recording to watch it, or might have it up in the background while I'm working. Since I'm able to work from home, I might do that. But it's the main draw is the race.
Yeah.
And what they've done is, in an attempt to try to get a little bit more TV viewership during qualifying, they have turned what used to be, and again, I think Dr. Jerry Punch pointed it out recently as well. I'm jumping to a different point. But when one of the benefits that you had from single car qualifying was for a lot of the teams that ran in the back and generally only get on camera when they're getting lapped by the leader, that was the only time when they got dedicated, isolated TV time where their car was on camera for an entire lap. Now with group qualifying, that no longer happens. So it reduces those underfunded backmarker teams to complete obscurity.
Yeah, I agree.
Except for the rare exception when one of them makes it through to one of the higher rounds. But generally speaking, honestly, in group qualifying, Go Fast Racing, Front Row Motorsports, they're not making it into round 2 and round 3. They're still, even with the group qualifying format, mixing things up and draft coming into play, they're still taking up 32nd through 37th on the grid. So it's not like the group qualifying is even helping them break out of their normal positioning on the grid. And it really has just made NASCAR look like a little bit of a circus act.
Yeah. And, back to Formula One, because I'm more of a Formula One fan than a NASCAR fan, but the way Formula One did it was like you have 12 laps over an hour session. And that's how, and then TV would obviously pick up the best or the fastest drivers like when they're doing the lap. So backmarkers never really got a chance unless they went out first because you're the first car on track. And then they changed the format to single lap qualifying. And it did. That's what you're just saying, touched on it with the backmarkers who are getting TV time. And the underfunded teams, they are getting their TV time now to run their lap, and the TV is on them. And then now NASCAR have kind of copied F1 in their knockout sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So why not just leave it as single car qualifying, but have knockout sessions? So instead of like doing draft, okay, maybe the qualifying might be a bit too long, but if you do your first round, 37 cars, they do their lap, then you break it in half. Let's say the top 20 go to the next round, another single lap qualifying, then top 5 goes for pole.
Yeah. Well,
that sounds better.
What NASCAR used to do is they would do 2 days of qualifying. They would actually do first day qualifying and kind of lock in the first half of the field.
Okay.
And then everyone from, I forget what exactly it was, if it was 20th on back or 25th on back, would have the option of running a second lap to try to improve their qualifying position. But they could only, that was also back when you had more than 43 cars showing up at the track on most weeks, and so there were a few guys going home. So guys who were out of field would have a chance to try to qualify their way back in. There would be a little bit of bump day drama most weekends. So that would actually, and that was the thing, is like first day qualifying would happen on Friday, set the pole, and we'd know who was starting on pole. And then you'd have second day qualifying to actually, that would happen on the weekend when more people would watch, so that the drama of the bump day stuff would actually pick up a little bit more of an audience. So qualifying, the reason for me why group qualifying really works and is exciting for Formula One with the rounds is that you actually have enough time in each of those rounds. There are two, I think, big factors that work for me. One, the primary one, is that pole position on Formula One and starting grid position in Formula One matters a ton. Now, it doesn't matter in the way that if you're one of the top 3 teams, Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, those teams have demonstrated that they have enough pace that even if they start dead last, they can cut their way up through the midfield and get into the top 6 positions by the end of a race.
Yeah.
So it's not dramatic in that way. Now, what is dramatic is that if Lewis Hamilton, who is a championship contender, does end up blowing it and getting knocked out in Q1 for some reason and having to start from the back, his shot at a Grand Prix win is likely gone, which means that right there, that is major championship implications, because unlike in NASCAR, you're not going to have cautions to rebunch the field and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
It's very unlikely that he's going to come from the back and challenge for the win, unless you have a sensational drive like he did last year. I think it was the German Grand Prix where he actually did that. He actually came from a back starting spot.
A bit of rain or a safety car or something like that.
Right, exactly. So, you need rain, you need a safety car, you need something to throw in a curveball to make that happen. But where it does matter is that in those groups, so, Charles Leclerc out-qualifying Sebastian Vettel or Ferrari out-qualifying Mercedes is big drama, because that's the first time in the race weekend that we really get to see who has the better pace that week. And it really is truly demonstrative, whereas in NASCAR you tend to have comers and goers, where a guy who's fast early in the run is not likely to sustain that pace throughout the entire run. Their car will tend to fall off as the long run goes, and cars that were less good on the short run will get better on the long run. That doesn't seem to be nearly as much of a factor in Formula One. Fast is fast in Formula One. If you're fast on lap 1, you also tend to be fast on lap 40. The other piece of that, though, is that within those battles, like in the midfield, if you've got Renault out qualifying Haas, for example, that's a big deal for the battle that those two teams are locked in. So there actually is a good bit of drama. The other thing that you also have is that with Formula One, the fact that the rounds are long enough that they can go out, set a lap, come back in, watch other teams set a lap, know what target they have to hit, know if they need to go back out and set a faster lap, analyze what they just set, make a few adjustments, and then go back out and try to hit a better lap. That keeps my attention when I'm watching Formula One group qualifying through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
With the way that they're doing it in NASCAR, where they have to come, where the first lap you get is your best lap, because then you have to come in and you have to cool the engine, and you're not allowed to change tires, so you have to stay on the same tires. It's like all of the things that create drama in Formula One and make group qualifying work and really compelling television just don't exist in NASCAR. So it just seems like that for oval track racing, and specifically for NASCAR, it just doesn't make sense. They're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Mm-hmm. I think like NASCAR is going to be threatening to lose their core audience for years with over gimmicking qualifying other races or the cars and the tracks and everything else, and that's what's killing F1 a little bit as well, is the gimmicks. And I see it in different series as well. That okay, the DRS system in F1, I'm not a fan of it at all. Overtakes was hard because it's a skill. Like if you see an F1, like if you see Schumacher coming in and then you say, wow, look at that for a pass, around the inside or the outside or into a corner. Yeah, you get these like fishing in a barrel. You know what I mean? Like 100 overtakes a race. I don't, it doesn't excite me. Knowing that it's a pure overtake is obviously a lot better. But this DRS system, and when you're saying the top three teams, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, they've got the best engine in the whole field.
Well, they've got the best engine and the best aero.
Yeah,
like they got the best of everything.
And the most money as well. Yeah. So they're gonna be. If you're like you said, Lewis Hamilton maybe qualifying, gets knocked out straight away, and then he's got an easier task to get up the field because he's got the DRS system in. So maybe if you took that out, the slipstream and probably overtake, but might be a little bit harder, and you probably get punished a little bit more. It might take him a few more laps might use his tires a little bit more if you don't have the DRS. So I find the DRS system, it's a bit almost redundant now because the cars are so efficient in their slick tires, the aero. I think it's a bit too overpowerful now. And then you're having like DRS zones not in one straightaway, but you're having it in two. You're having it in the back straight. So
they had
three DRS
They had three at Bahrain, didn't they?
Yeah.
So, and there was some talk that the one on the front straight in particular, I think, was too long because it was just that the driver was actually able to complete the entire overtake and be fully in front of the driver by the end of the straightaway. So there was talk that maybe they need to shorten that up a little bit, and I think that's a tweak. I'm of two minds. So if I remember correctly, the reason why DRS became a thing was because back on the thick rulebook thing. Formula One had a regulation in place that you could not have an aerodynamic device that could be manipulated by the driver, right?
Yeah.
So which is what DRS effectively is that the
F duct.
Right. The wing is closed when you're cornering to maximize the downforce on the rear end, but it's open on the straightaways. And in qualifying and practice, there are no DRS zones. They're just allowed to fly that thing fully open. And I think it was with the F duct, so that what it was that Ferrari, if I remember correctly, had figured out a way to stall out the wing on the straightaways, not through any mechanical means, but by the driver just kind of leaning their hand or like leaning their knee over to block a vent. So there was no mechanics involved, and at that point, Formula One just kind of realized it's like, we can't do anything. No matter what we do, teams are going to figure out a way to do this thing that we're trying to stop them from doing. So rather than stopping them from doing it, first off, everyone's going to have it. And secondly, let's see if we can we can also address something that's become an increasing problem as as these cars become further perfected and optimized running by themselves, which is that, and you'll see it a lot of times. We saw it at Monaco, I think, was the best example of this last year, which was obviously a sensational drive by Ricardo.
Hmm.
But what you have is that because of, for a number of reasons, without something like DRS, the way that the cars are currently configured, when you get even within a certain range, you encounter the same thing that they've been running into with NASCAR recently, which is that air bubble kind of forms between
Yeah.
the cars, and you can't even get close enough to attempt an overtake
Hmm.
unless you have an advantage that is so dramatic, like Mercedes has over McLaren right now, for example. If you have that massive of an advantage, then you can get close enough and affect your overtake. But if you're talking about two cars that are on relatively even footing, without the DRS effect, when they get within that 1 second range, they can't close to a half second or a quarter second to get close enough to use the slipstream effectively to even attempt the overtake.
Hmm.
Um, so I agree that, while I do agree that I would prefer to not see gimmicky stuff like push to pass,
Yeah.
like DRS,
The
like
Formula E have a Mario Kart system where you pick the outside line, you get like a boost for 20 seconds, something ridiculous.
or if the
What's
fans
going on?
vote for you, you get extra
Yeah,
energy,
I
which
know.
is
I've
just
seen that as well.
absolutely
It's crazy.
bonkers to me. But here's the thing: is that I I view these things as the it is a natural evolution of the technology. Auto racing has evolved past the point where basically where we've solved it. We've
Mm.
solved auto racing. We solved making cars as fast enough and optimized enough to the point where where it removed the passion from racing back in the 80s and 90s. When as soon as Williams brought that active suspension system that was changing the weight jacking for each corner to the point where the driver basically all they had to do was point the steering wheel and they really didn't
Hmm.
have to do anything with throttle
Yeah.
control and braking control. At that point, in my opinion, racing was kind of solved. Once we started outlawing traction control and outlawing anti-lock brakes, we're no longer truly pushing the limits of automotive technology. We are deliberately designing the rules to make racing a competitive sport among drivers. And I think that for me, the future of racing is actually to lean into that and actually go more in the direction of something like IROC, where you don't. Where for me that where the error with IROC wasn't that the cars were equally prepared, it was that they kind of did to the cars what NASCAR has done, which was that they prepared cars that were way too easy to drive for the tracks that they were putting them on.
Hmm.
If instead of putting on Pontiac Firebirds, which had, again, if you remember, I don't know if you ever watched IROC, but they had those massive clear plastic wings on the back of those cars too. Let me see if
Right.
I can pull up a picture of the last IROC cars.
Mm. I think it was like 2005 or 4 or something like
Something
that.
like that. But yeah, so I'm going to pull this up. And yeah, so this is a Dale Earnhardt IROC car. And, if we zoom in on this image, um, one thing that I noticed is that this thing's even higher off the ground than the current NASCAR cars are.
Right.
It's not even as sealed off to the ground. But I just want to really, isolate this rear wing right here.
Hmm.
That is a clear piece of basically Lexan. It's the same stuff that as far as I know, that the windshield's made out of. If you've got clear plastic over here,
Right.
it's like if instead of designing a car like this for the drivers to compete in and putting them on draft tracks, which means that you're saying that the whole brand of IROC was that this was supposed to be an international race of champions. You are taking the best drivers from multiple different disciplines in racing and putting them on the same track. And it was an honor to be invited to IROC. Like, that was a huge deal back in the day that you were one of the invitees to IROC. But you're taking them and then you're putting them in cars that can run flat out around Daytona, not just Daytona and Talladega, but they could run flat out around Indy. They could basically run flat out around Michigan, Charlotte,
Right.
wherever they put them. It was basically just hammer down, run in the draft, and work the draft. And it does make for an exciting, spectacular, dramatic show, but it doesn't really test the driving ability of the world's greatest drivers, which was the whole supposed to be the whole selling point. And I think that was one of the reasons it's fizzled. The other reasons that it fizzled were because it became increasingly difficult to, get to make the schedules work with IndyCar and NASCAR, and you obviously couldn't get F1 drivers in at all. But trying to get the IROC schedule to work,
yeah. I'll probably say that maybe some contracts in the racing contracts with IndyCar, like, no, you cannot go to the series.
There may have been some, but the thing is that because all the IROC races, because at the time NASCAR had clearly established it itself as top dog in U.S. auto racing, whereas when IROC started out, it was actually the reverse. It was the IndyCars that were the top dog. And if you go back and look at like late 70s, early 80s, when IROC was first starting out, all the IROC champions were IndyCar drivers. It was guys like Parnelli Jones and AJ Foyt and stuff like that. And then as they started because back then it was a 2-and-2 split. They would run 2 road courses and 2 oval tracks. And the oval tracks, I think one time they ran Darlington. They were much more challenging oval tracks than Daytona and Talladega to navigate. You actually had to use the brake pedal and the gas pedal, and you're also running in, the 79 Camaros and stuff like that were way up off the ground, much worse aero, big, heavy suspensions and heavy steering. So it really was a test of driving ability. If they would have, leaned in and embraced that kind of thing, where you're putting these guys in equally prepared cars, but the cars are worse, and then the tracks are challenging, so you're actually having to test the driver's ability to truly drive difficult cars, I think you would have had a better, more compelling product. And I think that's the future for racing, it is no longer, kind of like, they don't have traction control, they don't have ABS, they don't have a lot of the things that street cars have that make street cars safer and better to drive nowadays. So we're not, the relation between technical development and racing has kind of separated. I think that the future of racing is to lean further into the idea that it's a competitive sport and work towards ways to truly level the playing field. Think of the car as being a bat in baseball or the football and hockey. It is a tool that is simply, or like the shoes that the football players wear or something like that.
Yeah.
So we're not watching football to see who wears who's developed the best shoes. We're watching football to see who can play the best. And that's the same thing, is that if we equalize the cars but make them truly difficult to drive, and then we can see who's the best at navigating different kind of tracks and who ends up through the season having the overall best drive, the best ability to adapt and change to different racing situations.
Yeah, that's a good point. They think. So, what do you think about the Bristol attendance? Because I know NASCAR doesn't release any attendance figures, but obviously people could see how they weren't selling the corners of the stadium. And,
they don't need to release attendance failures for us to see with our eyeballs that it wasn't good this past weekend.
I was surprised they didn't put out some cardboard cutouts of fans and then just put them in the seats, so it looks like it's there's fans out there. But
Man, if NASCAR starts doing that, it's gonna be a sad day.
game over. Yeah.
Uh, I I don't know. I think that there are a number of factors that feed into it. I think that that there's a kind look. NASCAR truly has an attendance problem. There are a lot of reasons for it. I think the primary reason, first and foremost, well, the primary reason one and one A. One might just be, the simplest thing is that uh, all live sports attendance are down across the board, and viewership is down across the board for a couple reasons. One, the living room has gotten is putting up a much stronger competitive fight to that uncomfortable seat in the stadium than used to be the case. Our living rooms and the television set and the sound system and the home viewing experience where it
Yeah.
used to be that the home viewing experience was on a screen that was this big, not very clear. The speakers were built into the thing and not very good. And what you had available at home was either what you had in the fridge that actually took work to make, or you had a handful of places that you could deliver from. Now you've got a 64-inch screen in your living room. You've got I've got for I think it was like $200. I got a Bose sound bar that just like, especially for like Formula One and NASCAR, the
Yeah.
sound that thing
Oh
pumps
yeah.
into my living room
Imagine.
is fantastic. That thing is
Yeah.
awesome. And then on my phone, I've got Grubhub, Postmates. I can just go in and order literally anything, and it's at my door in 30 minutes. So I've got
Yeah.
I've got the whole spread. For less than it costs to get the concessions at the track or and I don't have to get in my car and drive and fight through traffic and pay 30
hmm
bucks for parking and on top of the ticket. It's like I get all of this at home and I get to enjoy the whole event and maybe have a couple friends over, and the cost at the end of the day is less than 50 bucks. It's like I agree that going to the track or going to the event is still a much better experience, but the gap has been closed to the point where it's not so much a money thing, I think, for a lot of people. It's just that it's not worth the effort
hmm
to get up off the couch and go, because the difference is less than it used to be. The viewing experience is home.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing that is impacting all live sports. Uh, where it affects NASCAR in particular, and why I think, and the other thing is just the diversity of media. Is that with YouTube and Netflix and streaming video and stuff like that, there are a lot of people who, when there were less options, they might be like, oh yeah, my favorite show isn't on right now, so I'll go indulge in my third favorite thing, which is watching sports or something like that. But
hmm
now that people can just Netflix binge on whatever they want, or they can, just sit there and watch Joe Rogan podcasts all day if that's what they're into, or they can just dive down a YouTube rabbit hole, which some of those YouTube rabbit holes get super deep. It's like, if
hmm
that's really what's driving them, and if they're being honest with themselves that, like, NASCAR or whatever their chosen favorite live sports is only their second or third or fourth favorite thing to watch and consume, they can consume everything that's their number one, and they don't even have to go to options 2, 3, and 4 anymore.
hmm
For me, my number one, usually it's racing and it's political stuff and talk shows. So I can basically get those things, and what's fallen off and what I've sacrificed is I don't watch a whole lot of scripted TV shows anymore. I
Yeah.
watch a whole lot less scripted TV shows because I've just fallen into, I either watch racing, or I'll watch a podcast or talk show or something that's related to a political issue that I'm interested in or want
hmm
to learn more about. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Um, I do think that when we're talking about Bristol in particular, a couple of folks in chat have made a really good point that the product at Bristol has gone down since they did the reconfiguration of the track where they added the gradient banking. Fans really didn't like that because and ever since they've been trying and trying and trying to get back to having that, the fans said loud and clear, we want them in a single file line right down at the bottom. We want the bottom groove to be dominant.
Mm-hmm.
They have been trying and trying and trying to get back to that point. And I'll be honest, with the way that the cars drive now and the way that the teams are setting up the cars differently, I honestly don't know, even if they were to go back to the higher banking around all and have it consistent all the way around, I don't know that we'll see that. I think that the drivers have figured out a way to drive off the right rear around the top line. I just don't know if, even if they went back to exactly the configuration that we had back in the 90s, if the preferred dominant groove would still be down at the bottom the way that it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that if NASCAR was, if the Bristol, the track, was able to get back to that formula that they had back in the mid 90s, when you had the, especially the night race, man, that thing was an event. I do think that people would come back to see a good show like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were putting some extra sticky surface on the bottom line as well.
I believe the official term is PJ1 track bite, but yeah, it's kind of like the pine tar that baseball, as I understand it, it's kind of like the pine tar that baseball players will put on the bat to have extra grip. Again, it feels a bit gimmicky to be putting stuff on the track surface to make it a certain groove grippier. But that's what they're trying to do, and it does seem like each time we go back to the tracks that use that they're getting a little bit better with how to apply it and make it stick and make it so that groove retains its grip throughout the duration of a race. But what ends up happening is that one of the consequences of having that sticky stuff down there is that it picks up rubber down better, and over the course of the race, that groove gets progressively slicker to the point where the new track, the track up top, that isn't taking rubber on and getting as slick as quickly, combined with the stuff actually wearing off, ends up being the dominant groove anyway by the end of the race.
Mm-hmm.
Now that does create some interesting stuff if you're, a super wonk like a lot of us on this channel are with, it is interesting to actually watch them, the drivers work and figure out as the grip level changes on the track throughout the race. That does present something interesting to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah.
One other point as well, from coming from F1 and now getting back into NASCAR, because my first season was 2006, where I needed to, stay up late to watch NASCAR races because it was on on TV late in, like, say, 10 or 11, 12 at my time in Ireland. So watching it there, and then coming over here now, I can actually watch the races in the afternoon, like a normal time, living time. A lot of people complain about how NASCAR this, NASCAR that, and the way F1 has gone with the hybrid situation, where you don't even, like, if you see the top comments on any old F1 race, it would be the noise, the V10, the V12s, and that's what you're missing from Formula One. And if you got over in NASCAR, you still have your engines, and okay, the horsepower is down, whatever, but could you imagine the day where hybrid energy comes into NASCAR?
It's coming.
It's
coming. I think it's inevitable.
Yeah,
because again,
that's what I mean. And then you'll see the volcano of eruption of people who, that'll be the end of NASCAR for some people as well.
Oh, they're going to hate it. The NASCAR fans are going to hate it because it does. Look, for me, I agree. There is something visceral about that rudimentary pushrod V8. But the reality is that that's not a relevant engine package for any auto manufacturer to be supplying anymore.
Hmm.
In the same way that the V12s and the V10s, look, all the supercars that are coming out now predominantly are either hybrids or full electrics. You know, very few supercars are coming out with a true V12 configuration anymore because the hybrids and the electrics are kicking their tail, especially in 0 to 60 and 0 to, in quarter mile times.
Yeah, yeah.
The uh the at the end of the day, an electric motor can provide consistent power. You get full delivery at the pedal as soon as you push it down. There is no power band where it has to rev up to peak torque performance the
Hmm.
way that a mechanical or that a internal combustion engine does. So the electric motor is the new technology. It's winning, and
Yeah,
it's already won the battle.
and it's here to stay. Yeah.
Right. So now if you go the direction that I think we should go with motorsport, which is, hey, let's go back a few years to something that's where there's more passion, kind of like how baseball does, where they still make these guys play with wooden bats. It's
Hmm.
like, okay, that's fine. Let's make some cheaper mechanical motors with a bunch of, just do it with super rudimentary parts that are cheap to manufacture.
Hmm.
Give them a bucket of bolts and make them put the thing together with that. Give them some regulations that require them to build something that's safe, that doesn't kill drivers when they crash, and let's go race those things. Let's stop pretending that there's any relation between what's happening on the racetrack and what's relevant to the showroom floor.
Right. Hmm.
It Dylan just said we could be siblings, which we do kind of look similar. Same
I was thinking
glasses,
of putting my
style,
contacts in.
beards.
I think I should
Yeah.
actually.
Man, I've got contacts upstairs too. I just they dry my eyes out, man. Contacts are. I got over the whole poking myself in the eye thing,
Hmm.
but it's just like it really is. It's discomfort for the sake of vanity. There is a
Yeah.
little bit of convenience. We're not having stuff on my face, but honestly, when Bernie Sanders put these things back in style, where where you could have like the larger frame, because for a while I
Yeah.
was wearing the ones that were like super tiny.
Hmm.
Like those were kind of annoying
The wall
because
frames.
a
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
lot of your vision was kind of just faded and blocky. But now that
yeah,
these things are back in style, glasses are awesome.
yeah. I'd agree.
Yeah.
For soccer, I'm really blind. Like I'm getting my vision's obviously getting worse, and too much ice racing, that must be it. But on the soccer field, it got to a point where I can't even see my teammates anymore to like pass
Mm-hmm.
the ball. Um, so yeah, I got contacts, and then they're only daily ones. So every time I play soccer, I put them in, and it's like 50 times better now. You know what I mean? Like, and I just throw them away as soon as I'm done. So
Yeah.
that might be from my improved performances on the pitch. That's my excuse. Um, but yeah, no, for glasses. Yeah, when's the first time you needed glasses?
Oh my goodness. So the first time I needed glasses was in high school, actually, and I think it was in high school. I distinctly remember, like I had always been one of the kids that would sit in the back, and
Hmm.
like even though I wasn't a troublemaker per se, but school stuff was always pretty easy for me. So I would kind of like I was a little bit cocky about that when I was a kid, so I'd sit in the back and just kind of like throw out sarcastic jokes and stuff like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and try to interject comedy into the lesson. But as my eyes got worse, I couldn't read the board, so I started moving closer and closer to the point where I was sitting in the front row, and I'm looking up there like this, like what does that say? And then I went to the nurse for my because you'd go in the nurse's office and get your routine uh, checkup, and they were like, I remember like they were like, yeah, you need glasses. I'm like, that actually makes some sense.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
remember
see
putting
that.
them on for the first time, and it was like, oh wow, What's all I've been missing all of this. Everything's crisp and
Yeah. Now I can go back to back to the class now and make more jokes.
exactly, which is what I
Yeah,
did.
yeah. Yeah, for me, it was the same. I was in the back and then I couldn't see the board. And I think it was like 14 or 15
Mm-hmm.
when it happened. But I used to get headaches, like pounding headaches when I come home from school because I'm squinting like to look at the board. So it's just like straining my eyes and straining, getting pain in my head. So my older brother wore glasses. He's like 6 years older than me. And he told my mom saying, like, I think Caleb needs glasses. Like, so she didn't think so, but she brought me down to get my eyes checked, and yeah, I got astigmatism, so I needed glasses, and she was so shocked about it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can blame the bad grades on glasses for a while, but now
Right.
when I got glasses, I couldn't do it anymore.
Ah, there goes the
I think it's good.
excuse.
Yeah,
Dang it.
damn it.
I was always competitive though. Like if I got even an A minus, I was angry because I was like I wanted I just wanted to get the perfect stuff. That desire, it was really like I think senior year of high school is when I stopped caring as much about that because at that point I had gotten the good test scores, I had the good grades, I had gotten into the good school. And
Mm-hmm.
so and I got senioritis real bad in high school. And then it kind of carried into college where um, I worked hard at stuff, but I stopped caring as much about the grades and
Right.
started caring more about um, challenging myself with taking difficult classes, even if it meant that it was going to impact my GPA.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you know, I did spend a lot of time focusing on, enjoying the college experience, and, exploring the party scene, and, just enjoying my first real time being free
Yeah.
as an adult and
Yeah.
or transitioning into adulthood and getting to do stuff that was just completely on my own, which there's learning that's going on there too. I think the college experience is extremely valuable to have.
Mm-hmm.
um, I actually think that the job training portion uh, is probably the least important. College is actually, I think, pretty poor at preparing you for a professional situation. You really have to be in a professional situation to learn that. You can pick up some base skills that will help you get in the door,
Mm-hmm.
but what's more important with college, I think, is if you're in a good college environment, is getting exposed to having your world expanded, getting exposed to a new and diverse array of people and personalities that you didn't
Yeah.
get when you were at your
Yeah.
little localized high school. Um, Getting
Mm-hmm.
to explore and learn different stuff, continuing the education, which I think the primary goal of it, purpose of education, is teaching citizens, teaching people to think for themselves and be able to,
Yeah.
teaching you how to effectively parse information, to separate fact from fiction, and be
Mm-hmm.
able to read through. Do actual effective research. That's the reason why they put you through so many classes where they teach you how to write. All those writing classes aren't just about the skill of writing, although it's super important because you immediately, as you go into, especially the digital age we have now, where we enter these lengthy debates on social media, on Facebook and on Twitter and stuff like that. If you can effectively communicate your thoughts and opinions in writing, that's a huge advantage.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
huge competitive advantage in the
Mm-hmm.
space of the exchange of ideas. So the writing definitely matters. Being able to tighten down your argument to a concise point matters. But also the skill, like I've always said that the most valuable thing that I learned at college was how to learn, but I say it as I learned how to Google in college
Right.
because I really learned how to use Google effectively to find the information that I wanted to find.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was at the end of the day the most valuable skill thing that I learned was how to teach myself other skills because
Yeah.
that's how I landed my current career. I taught myself how to code on the internet. I took a couple of introductory programming courses, but I never completed a degree in computer science. Everything that I learned, I either learned teaching myself from courses online and then
Mm-hmm.
learned on the job once I was able to land a job where I could complete my learning in a work environment because that massively accelerated it.
And do you find is there like a pressure in the US to, you have to go to college because back in Ireland, a lot of people, a lot in my class, like half did, half didn't. But like for me, I never went because like I was doing my learning in high school up to 17, 18. Do I want to go to college and learn like to put myself through tests again like straight away? You don't want to get burnt out at that age. You can always go back. So now for me, I was never going to go to college straight away. And a lot of people didn't. And a lot of people who, oh yes, I'm focused in on this subject, particular, science or whatever, politics. And then they're so focused on getting into that course and making sure they're getting straight A's. They get to the college, they got their loan, the grant and all that. They have all their expenses. They get there and it's not what it seems. And then 2 months later, they drop out and you got all that, debt on you now as well. Mm-hmm. So people who like rush into things is,
yeah,
it's important to make sure you're doing the right decision and having the right decision and taking a bit of time for yourself after school. It definitely is worthwhile.
Well, it is such a huge financial burden for, a lot of folks too. That the cost of it's grown astronomically,
mm-hmm.
and it is tied. I forget I think what it is, but let me see if we can get the statistics up real quick. But the median income for someone with a college degree versus someone with without one is, I think it's like a $20,000 or $30,000 a year gap. You extrapolate that over 30 or 40 years, you're talking the difference between being a millionaire and not having a retirement fund and literally having to work every day of your life because Social Security alone isn't going to cover it.
Mm-hmm. Like Senpai makes a good point there in chat, that people don't know what they want, and then it's straight away and they go into it. Like be like a mature student after a while, like to mid-20s, you can always go back. There's no harm in going back and getting further education.
Yeah. So here it is right here. The average salary with a bachelor, Americans with a bachelor degree earn a weekly average of $1,137, which is higher than median weekly earnings for workers at all education levels of $860. So I think that second statistic, if I'm reading that right, actually includes the people with a college degree. So it and up and higher. But if you just take out the slice of bachelor's degree, it's $1,100 versus $860 for everyone. Mm-hmm. So there's clearly a financial incentive that is tied to getting a college degree, and it opens up financial doors to you. So, yeah. I mean, that's why I've always felt pretty strongly that it's somewhat unjust and unfair to create such a financial barrier to attaining financial success or being able, all of these things that we've talked about that are not related to that, I really do think should be available to anyone who wants to seek and pursue them. What are your thoughts on that though? What do you think, about like, the idea of either, making education free to the public at the point of purchase, versus other alternatives and things like that?
Well, but like all for colleges being free. If you're like a lot of I think it's like in Cuba, like I think it is that free education, even up to third level education. Mm-hmm. Definitely all for that.
How do they do it in Canada and Ireland? Because those.
Well, I've never been to college, so I wouldn't know.
Oh, right now.
But
yeah.
I think that I think there's a point system. Mm-hmm. Like your like the final year of exams, which is called the Leaving Cert in Ireland. There's like a max of 600 points, and then there's college courses where 540 is political science or something like that. So you need to get like an A, B, in your results, and then you're in college. So I believe you don't have to pay. Like people get grants, but like semesters, I don't think you nearly actually have to pay for,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're going to a private college.
Gotcha. So,
So
but so the barrier, as long as you can hit the point, is that grades and test scores, just test scores?
it's like a point score, yeah. So your
Mm-hmm.
final, so my final exam in my high school, I had 7 subjects, in either a higher, let's say English, for example. So you got higher English, lower English, and then the higher will give you more points. So your B grade in higher English will be at 50 points towards your score. If you got an A grade in lower English, it's only 30.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the higher test is a lot harder.
Right.
So then you got all your subjects: geography, science, maths, and my score, I think I only got like 260 or something. Like, I didn't study at all, but I wasn't getting good grades.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wasn't really studying for my exams, my final exams. I think my business exam, I played soccer instead than the night before.
Mm-hmm.
And went into tests, and I think I got like an E, which is like a fail, like in thing. But they take your best 6 out of your 7 subjects, so that was my worst one.
Right.
And then my other subjects got me 260. I got an A in English, but in the lower level, but I got an A in there, and then B's and C's in Irish and English and stuff like that. So, but for me, I didn't know what I wanted to do after school, so I didn't go to college afterwards. And to be honest, that's what 12. That's like 12 years later, since I did that test, finished school, and I still don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I do like this. I've got passions, like I really enjoy like sports journalism. Would be definitely one to try to get into. But in Canada over here, it's more like radio and TV rather than just writing, like with newspapers or um, online articles. So the courses over here, I can apply for them no problem because I'll be a mature student. But it's for TV and radio, and I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested to change my Irish accent to a Canadian one to be on TV.
Mm-hmm.
So like sports journalism, definitely I would love to do that. But like I said, there might be people in the chat there who are in school right now, almost in their exams and not knowing what to do. Like, don't worry about it. It's not the end and be all of not going to college, or it isn't.
I agree with that. I mean, I went
Yeah.
to college for theater, and I'm doing computer programming for a living. So,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of like the point I was making earlier. College isn't just about, it's not just about the money or preparing you for a particular career path. There's so much else that goes into college. And Lick It Up does make a good point. Not everyone um, has a desire to do that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who want to go into construction and the trades and things like that. Truck
Trades, yeah, yeah.
drivers, um, people who want to either build or do maintenance on houses and stuff like that. Uh, the some of those jobs are at risk. I know that there's a lot of talk, particularly with Andrew Yang's campaign. He's made a big point that truck drivers in particular are at very high risk of being a lot of those jobs being automated out of existence
Mm-hmm.
in the next 10 to 20 years. So we do need to, as a society, come up with some way of recognizing that a lot of the things that people do for money are going to be automated out of existence. But also, a lot of the trades, while automating how to drive a truck down an interstate highway, that's a relatively simple problem to solve with robotic technology. Programming a robot that can go in and diagnose the problem with why your toilet won't flush
Mm-hmm.
properly,
Right.
that is actually having the robot be able to go up to your house, go inside, and that's a lot tougher one to solve. You might be able to create some better tools, but having we're not to the point yet where we're able to have navigating those finite spaces that are difficult and where you really kind of need to be a bipedal human with a couple arms. That kind
Yeah.
of stuff, is much less likely to be automated out of existence. Um, the difficulty though still is that it's tough to make um, a a competitive wage. It's becoming increasingly tougher to make a competitive wage because everyone, especially when everyone's wages are so depressed, everyone wants to have the leaky faucet in their house fixed, but no one wants, not everyone wants to or can afford to pay the $400 bill
Right.
that it takes for the parts and fair compensation for the labor. And then also, there is an inherently limited market there with how many faucets are leaky at a given
Hmm.
time. And once they're fixed, once you fix a leaky faucet, it takes a while for it to stop.
Someone in chat says about it's more about life experience than with going to college if you don't go to college as well, which is definitely true because I was working for 3 to 4 years after I finished school, and then I was made redundant in my job, and I took the money to go to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's obviously that's life changing for me as well. So yeah, definitely it's not the end and the be all and end all of all things. So,
Right.
um, so yeah, so other topics
Yeah.
will be let's say what would be the place you'd love to go to, like a vacation anywhere in the world?
So most of my vacations that I've been to actually have been to Greece because on my dad's side of the family, he's fully Greek, and we've still got family there, which we actually didn't know that we had when
Right.
we first started visiting. We just went back to visit the birthplaces, see if we could track down and locate the actual birthplaces of all of his grandparents' generation,
Mm.
was the generation that came over. Through that through that journey, we actually ended up locating and reconnecting with cousins that we had fallen out of communication with for multiple generations. Now,
Wow, that's pretty cool.
when we reconnected with them, they actually had some letters that my great grandfather had written and sent back with some money after he had come over
Wow.
here. But to my knowledge, my grandfather wasn't in touch with them, and we had by the time I was born and my dad, there was no contact with that side of the family at all.
Mm.
So we've reconnected with them. So my parents actually go every year and spend 3 to 4 weeks there, and they just kind of travel around the Peloponnesos peninsula, visiting one set of cousins in this village and then another set of cousins in this city
Hmm.
and stuff like that, and spending a couple days in each city.
That's pretty
Um,
cool.
so I've been there a few times. That's usually where I go when I travel internationally. Other places that I would like to see, I would actually love to go to Australia. I think it'd be really cool to go to Australia and maybe see the Bathurst 1000 or something like that
Mm.
would be cool.
Oh yeah,
Um, Japan would be really cool. Like it'd be really cool to go to Tokyo. I remember back a few years ago when I was working in the game industry, I always wanted to go check out the Tokyo Game Show because I thought that that would be really neat. Uh, Ireland would actually be really interesting to see, or Iceland and stuff like that
mm.
too.
Yeah.
Go check out some of the yeah.
Iceland's very expensive as well.
How about you?
Very expensive.
Where are your some of your dream destinations or places you'd like to go check out?
Um, well, I'm a bit mental when it comes to that. Like
Mm-hmm.
my next one will probably be Chernobyl, something
Mm.
like that. Some kind of
Oh
um,
my.
like I've been to like a couple of Formula One races,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them was for in Belgium in 2011. And my friend, who we actually planned to go to Chernobyl in that year, and then he backed out like almost last minute before we started booking flights and booking the tour. Um, so um, so ever since then, I'm always saying to myself, you know what, if I'm just gonna go on my own, and that's why I'll take the can on my own and stuff like that. And I definitely would love to do that. Um, so yeah, some kind of there's like a couple of crazy ones. Like there's one in where they used to test like nuclear bombs in Russia. I think it's like up in the north of Russia to go on the islands. You can take a boat right there and take a tour group. You go with that one as well. And I went to North Korea last March as well.
Oh wow! So
Yeah,
you've
that's
actually
really
been to North Korea.
Yeah.
What's it like there? Because it's hard for those of us who haven't actually been there to parse what is reality in terms of the situation there
Yeah.
versus what are competing levels of propaganda coming from the North Korean government and all of the governments that are opposed to the North Korean government. So what's it actually like?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like if when you're there, you can see if it's fake or not, or you can see you can see beyond the mask, if you know what I mean. For example, we have an itinerary to stick to. So we go to this museum, we go to this restaurant, we go to this. After that, we're going on the bus ride to another monument or something like that. So you're sticking to this schedule.
Is the schedule and itinerary set by the North Korean government, or is it set by the travel agency that you went through?
It's both, yeah. So is it okay if we go to here and then the North Koreans go back? Because yes, it is. So, but with that itinerary, there's also some, what do you call it, spontaneous stuff I can do. Like, for example, we went to the mausoleum where Kim Jong-il and Kim Il-sung were embalmed. So you actually go into the temple and you can actually see their bodies, and you have to bow. If you do visit, you have to bow because there's guards looking at you and stuff like that. So,
what would happen? Would you be arrested on the spot if you didn't
you'd
bow?
be in big trouble. Yeah.
How big trouble?
Like taken away, kind of big trouble.
My goodness.
Yeah. So.
Was that scary, knowing that if you didn't bow to their satisfaction, that you might be taken away?
Yeah, like of course, yeah. You knew what you're getting yourself into because we had to go to Beijing. So I went to Beijing from Vancouver, and then we stayed there for a couple of nights. I met the other people on the tour, so there's like 9 of us, including the tour manager, because the tour choreo group is based in Beijing. So you fly from Beijing to Pyongyang the next night. But we had actually have to be present at a meeting with the tour company to do's and don'ts. Like they sent us like a big huge list, and it took like an hour-long meeting of like don't do this, don't bring this. A lot of rules on that. You say the NASCAR rules about big list. This was quite similar.
A little bit more complex than the safety meeting that you put you through at your go-kart track.
For sure. Yeah.
No bumping, guys. Now remember, we know that they've got these big bumpers, but no bumping.
Yeah. There is injury and potential death if you don't, do this kind of stuff. But so we knew what you got yourself into, and then once you're at the place, that mausoleum was like there's no cameras obviously, which you have to leave them at the desk before going in, and there's like you go into the room and it's like a 30-foot room, like really dimmed, red lights on, and then you can see the casket lit up of Kim Jong-il, and Kim Il-sung was in the other
now
room.
Is it the casket that you see, or the entombed bodies are actually exposed there? Does it look like a wax museum kind of deal?
Yeah, it's like, well, they look waxed because
because of the embalming.
One's dead 8 years, the other's dead like 25 years. So, but they were like in obviously pristine condition with their, the Kim Jong-il suit, the gray suit, like the Soviet style. He's still wearing that, in the casket, but it's all glass. So the rule is that you have to go over, and then you're in a line of 4 or 3, 4. So you're like 3, 3, and 3. And then the first ones go up, and then you bow, and then you take your time, and then you go back up again, and then you bow at their feet and at side to side. But once you go around to the head, do not bow to the head. That's a big, major no-no.
Why not bow to the head?
It's just disrespectful for them.
Okay.
Yeah. So
did they explain why why bowing at the feet and at the side is respectful? Is it that if you bow at the head, you're placing yourself above them then?
That's probably a good guess of mine, John. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah,
it was explained that it was disrespectful, but they didn't go into detail as to specifically why.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. yeah. But that sounds fair enough. You know, I mean, it does like you're bound, and he's below you almost in that way.
Right.
But so we went to the left hand side of the body, and then we walked around to the top of the head, and I just like walked past, and I almost stopped and bowed. I'm like, fuck, like I just didn't know where it was for a second, and then went to the next side, and I was just sweating over that.
Yeah, I bet, because you know what, if you screw up, you're done.
That was mad. And then it's a huge temple, and then it's where the two golden statues are. So you see them. They're like 100 foot tall, you know, and you see them, and that's outside in the park area. But inside the building is where the bodies are. But they also have like other rooms where they have like medals from different countries. So like a Order of Merit medal,
right?
And like different presents of African countries, and there's like different countries where like plaques and stuff like that. So it's like a war room almost of their own memorabilia, which is interesting. So that was a Sunday. So that happened one day, and then it was a very intense day. You get on the coach. You're from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. back to the hotel again. You're constantly on the road looking at things, and one of the guys was like, "Oh, I really love a coffee right now because it's obviously so draining right now, but obviously it's not on the itinerary." So the tour manager, we talked to the guides who were really nice, very nice guides.
Are the guides North Korean nationals or citizens, or are there any folks who work full time as guides that are like from another country, or they're all North Korean? Okay.
They are specifically North Korean. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, so that's that'll be the best income to get because they, not a lot of jobs.
So that's a really prestigious job then.
Definitely is.
Okay. Yeah. Did you get any insight into how one comes into the tour guide job? Is it?
Yeah, there's like we're very open with them on the bus, chatting to them because you're constantly with each other I was there for five nights, so you're constantly in contact with them for over 12 hours, 14 hours a day, 5 days a week. So we talked everything about relationships in North Korea, marriage, like sex before marriage. Talked about foreign relationships, if there was like a Caucasian person marrying a North Korean, that kind of stuff. There was a lot of talk with that, and they were very open.
Are there any
that kind of stuff?
Are there any people who have journeyed over from North Korea who've decided to stay there as foreign nationals who have decided to emigrate to North Korea?
Yeah, there was a famous one, American on the DMZ border who crossed over. It was a documentary made of him, I think. But so he was like a famous, I can't remember what his name was, but he stayed in North Korea for like 50 years and married a North Korean woman, and he was American.
Okay.
But not a lot of people do go over because there's a lot of hoops to get through. Like the company that I went with, they get the North Korean visa for myself, and it's like an all expenses paid thing. Like you give them money, and then they'll sort everything out, like the hotel, the food, everything else, travel. So yeah, it's a lot of work to get in, and even like arriving to the airport, like I've got like 3 customs forms to fill out and hand over to the guards, and like that's the most nerve-wracking thing is like there's like 7 guards like all around you and stuff like that. They're looking at through your stuff. They're like asking it in broken English, camera and different things like, and but after that, then it's okay.
Did you get much of a sense for how the people who didn't have the prestigious position of being a tour guide lived day to day? Whether life was as bleak as it's portrayed as here in the Western culture, or as glamorous as the North Koreans would do, where they seem to want the rest of the world to believe that no, all that stuff you hear about how bad it is all propaganda and everything's fine.
Yeah.
Wherein lies the truth in your estimation, having actually been there?
There's some truth in saying where North Korean government want to portray their citizens as, everyone has a great job and stuff like that. But when you're traveling on the coach on a rickety road, going towards from Pyongyang to the DMZ line, which is like 3-hour drive, and you get to see the barren land out your window, and the broken roads that's making your bus, go up and down. And
So when you say rickety road, are all of the roads rickety, or are there well-paved roads and only the one that leads to the DMZ, or are they all pretty bad?
they're all pretty bad, but in
Hmm.
Pyongyang they're decent. But
Okay.
once you go outside in the countryside, it's and the bus is like an 1980s bus. So the suspension, this you want travel on NASCAR cars, you jump on one of these. Yeah,
They got some suspension travel on the buses there. Then
yeah,
maybe
it's crazy.
there we go. That's what we need.
Yeah.
That's the suspension that we need for NASCAR.
But yeah, so you get to see people, in the farmland, almost to their waist in mud, and then they've got no crops growing. There's like when the driver keeps on beeping his horn through the road because there's like a group of 20 people working on on a wall, and they're like cementing the wall, but that's it. Like it's no. You go back to your apartment and then back to work again, which is like building a wall or something remedial.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then you've got, we went to like a co-op farm. So this is where they grow like rice and vegetables and stuff like that. And not everything is going to be like this. Like they're showing us, oh yes, look, we can grow lettuce and stuff like that. But we could just take one look outside the window, and it's, there's a lot of land around us that's not growing and doesn't seem to be growing. So,
Did anyone on the bus try to engage in the conversation of pointing that out, or was it? Well, I guess, did anyone even bother trying to raise or question what sounds like, obvious propaganda when you can see with your
yeah,
own eyes that things are not as they're saying as they are?
yeah. One guy who's like a very multinational group. One of the guys is actually American. He's actually from Seattle, but went on a Dutch passport because obviously Americans are banned now after Otto Warmbier
Right.
died when he what happened, the incident at the hotel. So they banned, so Trump's banned any Americans going, but he had a Dutch passport, so he was able to travel, even though he's American. So he was kind of more investigative in that way, and he was asking a lot more intrusive questions.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one time where we went up to a monument, and we went to a on the hillside where a little park there. So we just rested for like 5 minutes, have a look around, and then below us was like practically slums, like favelas almost.
Mm-hmm.
And the road that we took was like, I mean, pristine. Like they've been scrubbing away with a toothbrush how clean it was.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy was like, "Oh, can we not go to the bus, travel through this way?" And the guide was like, "No, so like, I don't see why not, because like, you go through these houses, but of course, he's telling me that, oh, how could they say no? I'm like, of course they're going to say no. They don't want you seeing people,
Right.
scrabbling for food or something like that.
They've got a clear plan on, like,
Yeah.
and even though that it's obvious that they're letting you see some stuff that, in comparison to where you're coming from, doesn't look good, it's still tightly controlled what they're letting you see and what they're not letting you see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And then with the itinerary, like it was based around a soccer game. So North Korea were playing Hong Kong in the Asian Cup, and we were mixing in with locals. Like we were all the time. Like in my photographs I have on Facebook, I took a lot of photographs, and it doesn't seem like there's many people there, but I purposely took photographs with monuments because I don't want anyone else in the photograph, if you know what I mean. So
are there restrictions? So like if one of the people there appears in in your photograph, that could potentially get them into trouble, right?
Only if you're not allowed to take any military photographs. You cannot take.
You can't take photographs of the military.
Right.
Can you take photographs of? Do they have a difference between military and police, or are the military also the police?
Military also the police.
Okay, so there is no like local police department or anything like that. It's just
military
does all forms of law enforcement.
Yeah, and so the photographs, yeah. So military one, and they'll be checking your phone and checking all your photographs once you leave Pyongyang.
Mm-hmm.
Like leave on the airport, come back to Beijing, they'll have a look at your photographs. And another rule is those two golden statues, you have to have a photograph that has their whole statue in it, so you can't have it like cut off. So
Are
they
you
want to
required?
portray
Are you required to take a photograph of them, or if you take a photograph of them, you
if you
have
take.
you? So what happens if you accidentally get one that's not framed properly, but you then retake it? Do they just make you delete the one that was framed improperly?
Yeah, like
Okay.
if they look at it, if the guy was beside me and then saw me taking a photograph and then she's like, "Oh, can you just take that again?" If it was like, I'm like, "Yeah, sure," but there's no like, it wasn't. They had me by the head with a gun. And it's like, make sure you delete that photograph. So
Right. Well,
because they
I'm
want
guessing if you
first.
don't delete it, it becomes more interesting.
Yeah, make me.
Right.
They like the whole reason for like the trip and then the way they're being nice, but they are nice people, is that they want tourists to go and see their land and see it for themselves. And the only way you can do that is by portraying the country to be nice, and and they know that I'll be showing these photographs to you and to my family members and friends, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, that looks good." Like, "Oh, I might go myself." So they want to see every single photograph to make sure that it looks in a good light to not create.
But
Um,
they have to at some level understand what the perception, especially the people who are in the tour guide job, who interact with people from other countries on a regular basis.
yeah,
They have to understand what the perception of North Korea is from people who live in countries that are not governed by I'm just by such oppressively authoritarian regimes, right?
yeah.
Um,
I found that like when I think they're hiding the real facts. Like they're asking us, what do you think of North Korea, or what do you think of Trump? There was a general at the DMZ who asked one of the guys in the tour group, like, what do you think of our leader? So Kim Jong Un.
mhm.
And then also, do you think USA and North Korea can get along? And this is before the first meeting last year between Trump and Kim.
Were
Um,
they concerned about, like, what was your estimation on what they wanted to happen? Do they hold animosity towards America or Americans in general, or was it your estimation that the people would prefer to have a good and healthy relationship with America and the rest of the world?
um, uh, I think the the meeting was planned, so it might have changed their evaluation, saying like, okay, if Kim is going to meet Trump, then we have to change our own minds over being American. So they might have changed their opinion when we
Hmm.
got there. But in their propaganda, like everywhere you go, it's death to America, death to USA. Now,
Now
when
that's
after
the propaganda coming from the government.
yeah,
Did you feel like the people that you interacted with, did they buy into that and have a genuine hatred of the United States of America as a result of the propaganda, or do you feel like that they were able to recognize propaganda for what it is?
I think the guides recognized what propaganda was and what they're
Hmm.
doing. If they're constantly going in groups of tourists and um, you know like you can get the internet in North Korea as well. Like there's this, you can get the you get a SIM card for your phone at the airport.
Hmm.
And our tour manager had it so he can keep in contact with people from his work. But he checked the F1 result for me when I was in the bus in North Korea. So they have
Yeah.
their information, and okay, some of it may be blocked out, but the guides are in a
The
special
the
case
guides
where,
have access.
yeah,
Does the general populace have access? Like,
no,
could I get
they
on
only
social
have
media and follow someone in North Korea on Twitter right
no.
now and talk with them that way?
I mean, like a normal North Korean wouldn't have it. The only access they have would be in a library, and the computer is set up in a way where it's only local, the intranet kind of
Hmm.
way,
Right. Yeah.
So it's only like you find information of science and stuff like that on there, but you won't be able to go on Google or stuff like that.
Hmm.
But the two girls had like the phones out, they're playing games, and then like you could search the internet. It was that's a bit of an eye opener there. So yeah, there's DMZ zone. Do you want to see some propaganda? Because I brought some back. I was allowed to buy some.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
that'd be
I've
cool.
got two. Yeah, I've got two massive frames, so I'll show them now.
This has gone in a. This is what's cool about this is definitely different. Okay, so
So here's one.
I gotta say
Okay.
this is really cool and unexpected direction that this conversation has gone in.
So this one was there was like a artist at the DMZ,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a lot of these paintings for sale. So this was like €30, which is
Mm-hmm.
about $50, I think. Um, and yeah, so it was this one, and then obviously a lot more. Let's say towards Americans. So this is more like propaganda, like the World Cup for North Korea, winning this stuff. I mean, it's really propaganda towards the sports. But my
Right.
next one here might
Because
be a bit of a shock.
is
Might be a bit,
that piece of propaganda telling that, like, is the intent of that to tell the people of North Korea that North Korea actually won the World Cup?
um, in general, no. Like I think it's more like we're successful at sports, but not. They just put the World Cup for tourists. But oh, look, they might be saying that they won the World Cup, but they know that they didn't.
Okay.
This next one might be a bit shocking towards you, John, and every other American, but this is what getting in trouble is all about. So,
That's
uh,
is that a U.S. commando there?
yeah, the US on the ground. So
Oh, the U.S. guy's on the ground in the North Korea. So that's a North Korean soldier putting his boot to a U.S. soldier.
that's correct. Yeah,
Goodness me. Yeah.
and got the US on the helmet.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
so yeah,
That's textbook propaganda right there.
yeah. So after this meeting with Trump, Kim discontinued all those paintings that have hate towards America.
Mm.
So in generosity towards obviously having this on good faith with Trump. So you cannot buy those posters anymore.
So you were able to get those because it was before the most recent meeting happened, but after the most
Yeah,
recent reading, they have lessened the propaganda in the interest of having productive talks.
yeah. It's more like on the streets. It was more like workers, in a proud stance, and it's for technology and science, and rather than standing on American soldiers' heads. So they've changed it a lot. But during my time, like after 5 days, I had it's like a mental strain almost
Mm-hmm.
because the guides are telling you about this monument, and it does take a toll. So if anyone is going, like I think 5 days is plenty. The tour manager says they have a trip that goes on for 3 weeks, and there was actually fights between people in the tour because it was so you're really sure for so long, and there's a lot of information. You don't have your internet on your own phone if you don't have that SIM card because it costs a lot of money to buy a SIM card. So
Yeah.
you don't your phone's useless only for taking photographs in, so you have to interact with each other. So if you don't get along with people on your tour group, 28 days is a
That's
lot.
a
So
long time.
5 days,
That's a
yeah,
long time for me on a trip where I'm able to go wherever I want to go and just kind of plan
yeah.
my own. I can't imagine being on someone else's itinerary the entire
Mm,
time, and also with the threat of if I don't bow at the right time in the right manner, I could
yeah.
just disappear. Yeah, that would be stressful.
Uh,
I could definitely imagine that would be
Yeah.
stressful.
And another example of that stress was we went to Kim Il Sung's supposedly birthplace, which is at like a national park, and then there was like a hut there, and that's where he grew up. But it's surrounded by CCTV cameras, like everywhere you go. There's the cameras everywhere, and there's guards on watch as well to make sure that no one's taking anything and stuff like that. And then it was my back was really sick. We were like obviously on the go all the time, and my back was really starting to strain. So I had to tie my shoelaces; they were undone. And then there's like a curbing that's like where the path is. There's like a curb that like rises above, just above the path. So I was thinking like, oh, I'll just leave my foot on that, and then I just tie my shoelace because I don't have to bend over that far from my back. And then um, it just clicked in my hands like, no, maybe that's disrespectful if I put my foot on their curbing, whatever. So I
Hmm.
just I didn't do it, and then I just like tied myself like my shoe on the ground, and then the tour manager came over to me behind me and says, "Thank God you did that because they would have like a guard would have came over to you and you would have got in trouble over doing that if you did step on that curb." So, like, it really, it is stressful. It's not for everybody, but
Yeah.
it really was a great eye opener. And I met like the guys on the tour were really great, and we've got our own WhatsApp group. We're still talking, and I've met up with a few people as well. There was a guy from Montreal that was on the trip, and he was my roommate there, and he's came over to Vancouver to visit as well. So it was definitely worthwhile. Definitely worthwhile.
So what do you think? And I mean, I'm not, but I would say that you're probably more an expert than 99% of us who have never been there. Where do you what do you see as what are your big takeaways in terms of policy? Has the policy of walling off North Korea from the rest of the world largely been effective, ineffective? What's your feeling on that?
Um, I think I think Kim knows that this is the time to start moving forward, because his grandfather is the one who founded the state,
Right.
and his father was president for a long time, and he's grown up with that, and he's obviously he studied in Switzerland for a bit, speaking English, learning English, learning business.
Hmm.
So he spent time in Europe, so he knows what's like.
Yeah, right.
And
He's actually right. He's been outside North Korea. He knows
yeah,
that the are I actually just a quick thing because I've heard I watch the Young Turks a lot and I hear Jank make relatively flip. The two big rumors that he likes to mock Kim Jong Un for are that he shot a 18 in golf. Did
uh,
you ever hear any indicate?
yeah.
Is
I read a book
is
that
that a
had that in it.
true? Is
I
that
don't
is
think
that
that
a
is funny.
true? No, I mean, is that something that either that people actually believe or that he actually tries to put out there as part of the propaganda of him as a like godlike figure?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely propaganda for regular people. Like
Yeah.
at the Kim Il Sung hut where he was raised,
Mhm.
there's a calligraphy of his name
Mhm.
written in Korean, and the tour guide, one of the guides, the local guides, told us that Kim Il Sung himself wrote that when he was 2 years old. Like,
Really?
so
So
everyone's looking at each other and goes,
did the
"No,
tour
no way."
guide seem to believe that, or were they just saying lines as you or I would in a play?
Um, I think it's like it's a job for them, so they're
Mhm.
like rehearse the lines, so like
Right.
they don't deviate from that. Um, but do they believe it? Probably. I mean, the local guides from each area probably does, and regular folk do.
Mhm.
The guys that we were with, I have a feeling that they know the true matter and things. Like there's a lot of things like where they were talking about on the bus, and like who were like even going down to the DMZ and to Sarawak, and we're doing karaoke on the bus with like Backstreet Boys and stuff like that, and they were singing as well, and like it's just like I don't know. This is um, like I said, it's like the fakeness and what's real. Like there's definitely a truth in some things,
Mhm.
but also and what we see in like documentaries and films and from word of mouth. Um, but you can definitely see right past that if you're there as well. So you know what's fake and what's not.
Right.
Were you locked? Were you in lockdown all the time, and were you allowed to go anywhere you wanted? Well, of course not. Like they're the rules. But
Yeah.
we were allowed to go for a 5K run on our own with the guides running as well. But like I was practically on my own on the streets, running between stadiums and ordinary people who were going to work.
Okay.
Um,
Were you able to interact at all with ordinary people, or was that kind of impossible because they don't speak any language other than Korean?
yeah, it's basically impossible. There was a marathon that takes place every year in Pyongyang, and it's like an international event. Like a lot of folk go to it, and it happened just this weekend. Gone, and the local people are on the streets, lined up to cheer on the runners. And I know some people like they put their hand out and like everyone's like high five and stuff. You know what I mean? Smiling, happy. Is that genuine? I think it's partly genuine.
Right.
And because our like the itineraries are different for different tours. Like there's one that's heavy, like war based, so you find out about Korean War. Like ours is obviously the soccer. So we went to the soccer academy where they take like underage like boys like all the way up to like 18 to obviously study in school, but also play soccer for the national team or for soccer for as a what do you call it as a thing to do. And we actually played a game, like a friendly game, like five of us, like a 5v5 against 13-year-old North Korean kids. And we were all hung over and stuff, but like we did lose 2-1. But
to 13-year-olds.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like they're drilled 24 hours a day to play soccer.
Yeah.
So that one touch pass, like boom, boom, boom. Do you know what I mean? And we're like 30-year-old guys, like out of breath and like, like I'm trying to struggle. And then it's all everything's recorded. Like we got there's a independent filmmaker with us, and like a camera guy, and he records the whole trip for us. And if you want to, you can buy that DVD for like €20 or something like that, and that's your souvenir. So then you can play it in your PC or DVD, and then you can watch the trip again.
Did you decide to buy the DVD?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like an hour and a bit long, and it's got everything in there. And the match, the soccer games in there, he's got a few bits of it. So there's an embarrassing one where we did this kind of move, and then I was waiting for a cross to come in. The ball comes in, and I heady it, and I'm practically got an open goal. And then the kid just like with this acrobatic save with his fingertips just claws it away. I'm like, God, I was like, how? Like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But again, they're interacting with like normal, like school kids.
Right.
So there's no harm in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like human beings are amazingly adaptable, and if you do, either independently or if it's forced on you to have the discipline to train in one specific discipline, we can become amazingly proficient in that one thing. Clearly, obviously, the problem, as I see it with that, is that you have a society structured in such a way where either you bow your head and play along with all of this propaganda and all of this authoritarianism and you get ahead yourself by playing along with this amazingly oppressive idea, and it only works out for you if you happen to have the ability to be good enough, talent-wise and with enough physical ability that it works out. I would imagine that, for people who are, unfortunately either born with mental or physical disabilities, things probably don't go particularly well for them in a society like that.
Like it's definitely being, a bunch of grapes and you're picking the best ones. Like, unfortunately, it is. And then,
human beings shouldn't be treated like grapes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then in the North Korean society, with that example for that soccer program, you're going around North Korea finding the best, students of soccer at 3 years old or 4 years old, and you're taking away from their family and putting it into this boarding school, and you're getting trained on soccer all the time. But the only way you can survive, the only way you can really survive is to go with the flow. Like,
there is no such thing as what we consider to be a normal life, because you either accept that all your decisions are going to be made for you by the government, and you're just going to play the role that they assign you, or you don't decide that, and you either
Prisoner of death.
you still end up do that or prisoner death, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Either the role that they assign you is going to be you're working on the wall and eating
Hmm.
nothing but rice, or prisoner death. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get to see did you see any instances of the military police actually arresting and taking people away for making relatively
Mm,
minor mistakes?
no.
Or I guess that the flip side is that I would imagine that actual crime rates are probably relatively low because it is true if you crack down with enough brutality, eventually the only people left are the ones who bow their heads and just kind of fall
Yeah,
in line.
that's correct, John. Yeah, like I mean, it's zero crime. Like I got so used to leaving my personal belongings in the bus, you know, my phone, my wallet on the seat,
Right.
or on the street, you know, where we had a coffee, and then, you know, we took some photographs and left my wallet and my phone on the chair on the table. Like, no one's gonna go past and steal it.
Yeah, I can
Like,
only
not a
imagine how that
chance.
scenario would play out. Is the American
Yeah.
or the Western civilization tourist comes back and tells the tour guide, "Hey, I left my phone's been
Mm.
stolen." They're gonna get your phone back probably,
Yeah. Like,
but and they'll probably even make a show of, here it is. Oh, I'm so sorry,
sorry about those
and
blood
then
stains in your
that
phone.
guy probably gets taken away, and you're not going to see what happens
Yeah.
to them afterwards, and it's not going to be a good thing.
Yeah. That's not good.
Like,
That's,
it's not like they're going to string them up or publicly flog them for you, because you would be shocked, and that's not the image that they're trying to see. But like, we all know what happens to that guy afterwards.
yeah. It's like, I couldn't even see myself anyone robbing my phone or anything like that. Like, I wouldn't be able to like visualize, you know, like a mugger
Right.
in North Korea as well. It wouldn't happen.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure, but the
yeah.
flip side of that is that the trade-off is living in a society without crime in that way means that no one's free.
Hmm.
You don't get to choose if you want to be a soccer. That's all chosen for you. If they decide that you're good enough at soccer, you're going to be a soccer player, and that's
Hmm.
what you're going to do, regardless of whether you want to paint or not. If you're going to be a painter, you they 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 will make you paint, but you have to paint what they tell you to paint. You have to paint their
Yeah.
propaganda. Um,
Like the tour manager told me a few stories where we're at those statues, and you know, you can't smile, you can't make any faces, obviously, you know what I mean, or
mhm.
handstands or stuff like that. But yet people were doing, you know, dabs and stuff in front of it, and you know, they'll get their photograph taken, and then there's a guy who's watching, you know, 100 feet away, purposely making sure that no misbehavior happens.
Mhm.
You know, he sees that, he calls the higher authority, it comes back to the two guides, and they're fired, and that's their job gone.
Wait, so
So
run that by me again. So a tourist is doing a dab
yeah,
in a photo. Another guy 100 yards away is watching that.
yeah,
He calls someone else. Nothing happens to the tourist, but the tour
right,
guides lose their jobs for allowing it to happen.
exactly, yeah,
Just wrapping my head around that whole scenario right now.
yeah. So there's everywhere we went, like all these statues, monuments, anywhere we
Mhm.
go, there's people out there who just watch us, and to make sure that you're looking at the statue, and that's all you're taking photographs. You're not misbehaving, and if you're doing misbehaving or if you're having any behavior that's just not acceptable, like dabbing or handstands in front of a monument that's supposed to be solemn, like, you know, you must be some kind of idiot to try that, you know. So
Right, because
um,
you're not just putting yourself at risk, which there's the obvious thing where, but in reality, as you said, it's you'll get away with it, and you'll have I guess a cool story to go back and tell your drinking buddies. Meanwhile,
mm-hmm,
you've just ruined someone else's
yeah,
life in another country for entertainment.
yeah, that's, you know, it's
And you don't even, and you might not even that the guy who was doing the dab and the goofy stuff might not even be aware that that's what happened, right?
mm, yeah, like another scenario was where we, you know, you can travel on the subway train for a few stops. And again, the tour manager told me there was the guy had some candy on him, and he offered to to people on the train, without asking the guides if it's okay, because you have to ask the guides, like, is it okay if I take a photograph of this, or is it okay if I
you have to ask them if it's okay to do everything you do. You have to clear through the guides first.
Mostly, yeah. The first couple of days, John, and then after a while,
yeah,
they've got to trust with you. You know what I mean?
Right.
These seems like a good group. It's okay. Yeah, you fire away with your photography. So then they were eating the candy, the North Koreans, like the girl, like the small child, and their father. And then again, somebody saw it on the train, maybe an ordinary citizen, and then they got called up, and they got back to the guides, and they asked the guy who gave the candy away, like, did this happen? And then he's like, yeah. He goes, well, you need to. It's like so important to tell us first of what you're doing around here. You can't just offer people sweets, or everything's regulated, and we can't hide in North Korea, because first of all, we're all we're not Korean, so we're going to stand out like a sore thumb with our normal clothes, and everything we do, we're being watched on by North Koreans from the bus. You see that it's a tourist bus on the side of the bus itself. It says Korean tourism, big green bus. You can't miss it. So when we go by, like, people are just staring at us, like at the windows, and you can wave to them, and someone wave back, and someone just stare at you because maybe you're the enemy and stuff like that. So, and then for those guides, that is probably the best job you can probably get in North Korea, is because the tips they get from tourism. I can just imagine what I gave was about it was like €70, and then there's like 9 of us with the tour manager, so 70 times 9. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money and that's only just one week's work.
Now, do they get to keep the tips, or do the tips get collected and go back to the pool?
That's the thing. You don't either keeping half the tips or you're keeping the whole lot. But with these tour guides, they're well connected to get that job, because I think one of them was their father works for the Ministry of, I don't know, Ministry of Defense, but like something high up in the office. So she's got a decent life more than the others.
Right.
So maybe she does keep all the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got the job as basically the public relations for the oppressive regime. You're going to get treated well to keep you happy, so that you don't defect, because
no, for sure.
They want to keep you just that's the whole trick with authoritarian regimes, is that they want to keep the people in the positions in their various roles just happy enough that they don't do anything subversive. You've got the threat of the stick, but they're also offering you the carrot.
Yeah.
But just one carrot. You only get one.
one ration a week.
Right.
And they built a war museum, and obviously the Korean War, huge in American history, and
I would imagine it's much bigger in Korean history than it is in American history.
True,
as big as it is here. Yeah,
it definitely is. But it's crazy when you hear what they think what happened. So
what's their version of events?
So they think that Americans started the war, that communism didn't go over that line of that parallel and attack the South Koreans and the Americans, that they think it was the other way, that they were attacking the North.
Mm-hmm.
So they first drew the tanks up. And you see that everywhere. You see that at the War Museum, and the guy taking you around and showing you things. And he got, I bought a book there that had, the U.S. imperialists caused the Korean War or something like that. And it's a proper propaganda book translated into English. I gave it to my dad as a present. And it literally states that, it was America that was the first to do it. So, that's why we attacked. Like, they're the bad guy.
Right.
And if you this museum was only built a few years ago, so it's really futuristic in like their sculptures, and like they've got their whole like lineup of guns they found on the like the war field, some crashed helicopters, American helicopters. They have that American U.S. naval ship, the spy ship that is still docked there, the U.S. Pueblo, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And the North Koreans captured that, and they have it as a trophy. It's like, this is American spy ship. Look what we have, you know.
Right.
So, so yeah, so they think they're American, and you know, communism was so close of winning the battle. It got to a point where the Americans were surrounded in one small city down the south, like very south of South Korea, and communism had taken over most of the whole mainland.
Mm-hmm.
And what Americans did is that they got on the boats and they went around and fought from the top, and then they got it back, and that's where it balanced between the parallel, and that's where you have South Korea and North Korea today.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it was so close of communism winning that battle, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they got their because in the 50s, 60s, like communism was stronger. They had the best equipment, they had the best guns, they had the backing of Stalin in that war,
mm-hmm.
and that's why they started it.
Right,
they
because
take it over.
After World War II concluded, we started fighting a lot of proxy wars with the Soviets in
Vietnam,
various other, right, exactly, and in Vietnam went differently. Vietnam, the communists did win and took over the whole country, and I mean, you know, looking at the different scenarios, clearly, I think South Korea is maybe better off economically now than Vietnam is, but Vietnam is also, I think, in a markedly better position than North Korea is.
Oh yeah, because if you look at Pyongyang, like the capital of North Korea, it's still stuck in the 60s and 70s with their buildings, because it got absolutely shelled to pieces in the war, and the war ended in 53. So you're building from 53, and those buildings haven't been updated.
Mm-hmm. Do normal people only travel by foot? Do they own cars? Do they? How do normal people or could, from what you got, what was your impression of how, you know, like the daily lives of people who aren't tour guides get around in North Korea?
Yeah, there's like buses, like normal buses that's packed to get around the city, and then people walk, and they've got bicycles. But at first, the North Koreans didn't want bicycles to be on the streets because it gave them freedom to go where they wanted to go on their own power. If you know what I mean. So, you know, you don't need gas to fill up your bicycle. You can just go on your own will.
Right. And so when you say the North Korean government didn't want the peasantry to have bicycles, or the peasantry themselves didn't want bicycles?
The government didn't want the peasant to have bicycles, but now it's like, it's for the countryside, it's easier to get around that way. But yeah, that was the main issue with that, and people just walk. There's a train station that goes. You can go to Beijing. It takes you 22 hours on the train to get to Pyongyang to Beijing, so you can travel to the countryside. And then there's a bridge that links China to North Korea, obviously where the train goes. And there's free movement through that as well. There's like Chinese restaurants in the North Korean side, in Sinuiju, I think it's called. There's Sinuiju and there's Dandong as the two cities next to each other. And then they've got, like, you know, an interrelationship with each other economy-wise, because China is the biggest economy North Korea has as an ally. Right. And without China, North Korea would struggle big time.
So how does the economy of North Korea work? And again, understand that you, as a tourist, you only get a limited, but like, do people have money and buy and sell and exchange goods with each other, or is it with all things being held in common, is it just like if you want food, you go into a restaurant, they serve you food, and all of the means of production is run by the government?
Exactly. You go into a restaurant,
you don't have to buy the food, but they dole out your portion, or is it
you get your own wage. You get your own
Okay.
wage packet from the government, obviously a set amount, and you don't pay for your apartment. Um, like you live it rent free, but you work.
Okay.
You just work. The only day you get off is Sunday to
So you
the
work
bow to
you
thing.
work six
So
days a week. You have Sunday off.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and
Um,
Sunday is where you go to. It's a special place to go to that
and
mausoleum to pray,
is
or
the
to
work?
not pray, but
Oh, you
well,
you have to go to the mausoleum to pray every Sunday?
not pray, but you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
to show your worthiness and stuff
Right.
like that. Yeah,
Is that the entirety of the Sunday, or do they get some actual leisure time?
yeah. There's definitely like we went to a water park. There was no Koreans there. Pool halls. There was a they're huge into like beer. Like they like their drink and
Mm-hmm.
cheap as well. So there was a lot of breweries there, and people just go in for a drink. So yeah, so it is they get a wage packet every week, and they spend it when they want to, and or how would they like to. Um, there was a shopping center that went to. It's the only one we can visit as tourists to go into,
Mm-hmm.
and we can exchange our money for Korean money because we were not allowed to use Korean won there.
Mm-hmm.
It's only the locals that are allowed to do it. So we had to use either US dollar, euro, or the Chinese money, yuan, I think it is,
Yeah.
or yen.
Mm-hmm.
So we changed that over to Korean won, and then we can actually buy things in that supermarket. So we bought like beer and food, and there's like ordinary Koreans beside us with their shopping trolley, and they're buying stuff. And there was like electronics place there with like Sony TVs and stuff like that, like there, and they can buy that if they want to, and washing machines, and it was like a normal everyday thing. Now, is that just because it's a tourist place and for only us us to see? Yeah, I doubt that there's all the supermarkets are like that.
Right.
But people were coming in and out shopping like normal with their kids, and a few people have cars. It's very actually expensive to pay for gas there, but
Mm-hmm.
they put in their cars and they'll go home. So
Gotcha.
mm.
Um, yeah. I'm trying to think if was there anything else. I'm kind of running out of questions, I guess.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that was particularly striking or noteworthy to you, on the that really stood out that we haven't covered already?
Um, mm, Probably not, John. I mean, yeah. Like for lunch, like for us we only had rice and vegetables
Mm-hmm.
each day.
No meat?
Um, we got a special like barbecue. There's like a Korean barbecue like
Mm-hmm.
that we went there for the last night, and that was pretty nice. But the only meat you could get was dog meat. So I had
Ooh.
for an extra €5, you can pay for dog soup.
Ugh. Can't
Yeah,
imagine
well, I'll
eating.
tell you,
Yeah.
like, okay, I try it because I haven't had meat, for 5 days now.
No, right, yeah. But
I
yeah,
definitely want to try it and stuff. And
goodness.
I'm sick of just eating vegetables and rice all the time. But you do know it's dog, right? And stuff like that, and and
Yeah.
a lot of people, some people didn't too, and some people did, but it was the only proper protein we actually got. Because you're basically just eating rice and kimchi, which is like raw cabbage
Right. I guess kimchi does have a
and
little bit
cold
of protein
noodles.
in it.
Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, get your small portions. But yeah, the dog soup was like everyone says, it tastes like chicken or it's gamey, whatever. But it was all right.
Right.
But yeah, but for ordinary Koreans, it'll be just like rice and kimchi would be the only ones that they'll have.
Right.
But yeah, no, that was I think that's everything covered. Any basis, and if you want to check out any photographs, I can send it over to you or on Facebook or whatever. So
Yeah, I'll probably end up hitting you up on Facebook because it would be
yeah,
interesting to see more of that. It's so because so few people actually get a first-hand experience. It's just
mm.
very interesting to hear a first-hand accounting of it.
Yeah. Could you
Um,
get a Greek passport by any chance?
I probably would be able to apply for Greek citizenship,
Mm-hmm.
because since I've got established lineage, I think it's
Yeah.
easier for me. I haven't explored that. But theoretically, I probably could. I,
Mm.
I'll be real. I honestly don't know if one, if I would want to go to North Korea, or
Yeah.
two, if it would be a good idea because I have a rebellious streak, and especially at the end of 5 days of people telling me no, you can't dab here, and
Yeah.
no, yes, you must bow here. I might just be like,
Mm.
you know what?
Yeah.
and then that would be the last you would see of me.
That's right.
You guys could do a memorial for me on the
Yeah,
old
your
iRacing.
gloves would be just like resting on your
Right,
on
yeah.
your empty coffin, and that's it.
Yeah, I might throw a glove at the wrong thing.
Like a love slap.
Right.
Um, but yeah, no, that's been a great show.
That's been fantastic, man.
It's,
Quite unexpected to get an inside look at, or I'll probably clip just that segment out and have that go up as its
yeah,
own
for sure.
thing.
If you see in my Discord, my profile picture is actually from the DMZ. I'm on the North Korean side. Actually, one more note is that at the DMZ, so the blue houses, the iconic ones that are in the middle,
Yeah.
where the North Korean South Korean is. So the building on the opposite side is South Korean, and you got North Korea, and we got onto the balcony, so you can see over the South Korean side and the huts. And on our side, there was like one or two cameras, CCTV cameras there. And on the South Korean side, there was like hundreds of cameras on top of the balcony, all pointing towards obviously the North Korean building. And there was a Swedish guy on the trip who actually went to South Korea a week before for the Olympics. And he actually visited that side of South Korea, which is kind of crazy. And the American soldier that was there said, do not point, do not laugh, do not, shout towards the other side. It's a strict rule. On the North Korean side, the general that was with us, yeah, do whatever you want. Take a photograph of this.
Interesting. There was one little piece where there was now I would imagine that on the other side it's more I don't know if it's to inflame tensions or if it's also that there's a little bit of a you don't want to
rile you up.
Don't
yeah.
well and don't punch down. Like the people on the other side have it much worse than the people on the South Korean side of that line.
Yeah.
So.
But I'd say that there's obviously a lot more tourists that go to the South Korean side, and Americans are free to go to South Korea.
Yes.
And
yeah.
the DMZs on that side.
They're one of our biggest allies. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So then there's going to be a lot more people who are boisterous, let's say, and they will like laugh and like point and take photographs and oops, sorry, I didn't know what I was doing, and being careless.
The punishment for that is basically a naughty. There's no risk of being marshaled away.
That's not it. Yeah.
Yeah.
20 years in the Navy or whatever. But and did you see that video of the Korean escaping with the Jeep?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, there's one a couple of years ago where he drove through the checkpoints in North Korea and where we were, and then he went down the road and he went for the border between those houses, between those blue huts, and he got stuck in the ditch that's in between the leaves. And the North Koreans, he was fleeing obviously the other side, so then he jumped out of the Jeep and he ran for the other side, and then there was North Koreans shooting at the guy, and he just made it the other side with like a couple of he definitely got hit.
He was trying. I'm guessing this is one reason why they discourage motor vehicles, is because it gives you the ability to potentially defect.
Yeah, and
then probably why they didn't want them to have bicycles as well. If you give the people mobility, it increases the ability they can defect. It's
Yeah, Smith saw it he says he saw it in the chat. Yeah, like and they waited till the nighttime before the South Koreans got out, and under the night of darkness actually got the defector in and treated him, and he survived after that. But it was a crazy moment. So once we were there, you saw that where that place was, and it's all like hollowed out now, and there's no chance of someone doing that again. So it was quite interesting to see that. But he was
that one guy made it through, and now they've covered it up so no one can get out the same way that he got out.
Exactly. Yeah, and they put extra blockades on that route, on that road. So when you first get to the DMZ, it's another 2 miles down the road before you see those blue huts.
Yeah.
and there's checkpoints all the way around. And the tour manager told us that there's some new ones in that have like ironclad, 20 foot across the whole road. You're not getting through this.
Mm-hmm.
If you go like past those, like the right side of the road or the left hand side of the road into the grass, there's probably a landmine there or something like that. So,
right.
yeah, it's crazy. I'll try and put it in Discord for that. Link for that video.
Yeah,
It's crazy though.
that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
One last question.
Yep.
Was your fiance able to go with you, and what did she think of you going to North Korea?
Oh no. I asked her. Like I told her that I always wanted to go. Like this is not just a spur of the moment thing. I always had it in me to. I wanted to go. And I had a chance there to go at that time, and I asked her if she wanted to go, but she couldn't get time off work. But I'm pretty sure that she didn't really want to go anyway. But there was a couple who from England that was on the trip together. So there's people who do go as couples there. Yeah. So, but I'm kind of like another thing on my own to kind of do. That kind of freedom just to go for it. And do you want to be shackled down at that time? I don't think so.
Right.
So yeah, she was fine with it. I brought her back a souvenir, a propaganda souvenir, so I'd say she was happy.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
well, I'm
sure
she was most happy that you returned in fully functioning state.
Yeah, this so I couldn't Skype her for like I couldn't get contact with her for 5 days, so she didn't know how I was doing.
She must have been going flipping out by the end of that.
Yeah. Well, I told her, pre-warned her that like I don't have internet over there, so you just gotta have to trust me that like everything's okay.
Right.
But do you know what's funny? Like, so I looked at my phone at the DMZ, and I could actually get a connection from the South Korean side on their internet, and I was able to send a message back to her on Skype to say like, here, I'm at the DMZ. I was on the coach and we're driving away. So once I sent that message, it got sent, but I didn't get a message back. And then I checked it once it arrived back in Canada, and she sent like a message 2 minutes later saying, "Oh, where are you?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I couldn't respond because I didn't have.
Oh no! So sending the message was actually worse than sending
so
nothing.
Yeah,
because she thought, "Oh my gosh, he sent a message and they caught him sending it." And now all the
Definitely not my smartest thing I've ever done.
No,
No, in a career.
That's all right.
This
an understandable thing to do, though.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
To make sure I'm okay.
This has been great, man.
Job. Yeah, it's fantastic. And
cool. So before we wrap up, any shout-outs, anything that you'd like to plug? Anything like that at all that you want to? Your floor is open for shameless self-promotion.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at CaolanMartin89. So that's CaolanMartin 89. I'm usually on Twitter, and also Facebook. If you want to just hit me up on Facebook, and you can just check out those pictures of North Korea and you're interested. And obviously iRacing. It's been great, John, that you've been putting so much effort into iRacing. This is how I got into it. I first saw your stream, and it's made me want to get back into sim racing again. And I think a lot of people in the chat are very appreciative of the work and effort you've been putting into it. So
thank you.
I think we all want to say thanks about that.
So we can all see you running cars with various Wrigley's gum brands,
that's
right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Double mint, juicy fruit,
Big Red,
yeah.
Yeah, you can see that.
Good deal.
I have my own stream. I haven't been streaming a lot, and I've just been concentrating trying to get my iRating up and stuff like that. But I do have a stream under Amsteriga on Twitch as well. So
you started streaming and stuff?
Yeah, I'll try and start that again. Yeah, I started.
Good deal.
I actually played chess. I used to play chess on stream.
I love chess.
Yeah. So I'll try to get back in iRacing. We'll probably have a chess game then on.
That'd be good. Yeah, I imagine you're probably better than I am. I'm not too good, but that would be fun to do sometime. Yeah, I had a thought before I was going on. I'm like, you know what I'm gonna do to him? I'm gonna pull up that video of the I think it was at USA the one time where he wrecked me coming out of four. I'm like, I'm gonna put this one up first just to mess with him.
That was crazy.
Because I like understand, like I am aware on the other, like, of what it's like on the other side. It's like you're coming in as a fan of the Twitch streamer. The last thing you want to do is wreck the star of the show.
Yeah, I know.
like,
I know. And the thing is, I remember turning that corner, and then it got loose on me.
Yep.
And I was like, I got D license at that time. So, obviously didn't have the experience of it properly, and then K&N car, obviously twitchy. So I caught it, and I hit the wall, and I went over the left-hand side, but I don't know if I hit you until I saw you,
You rolled 20, me over, didn't you? I got full on, like,
oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't really want to show my face on stream again, in the chat again.
Yeah, I know.
That felt so bad. Yeah,
no, man. So understand, like, and I don't think it, but like, understand that, and I think you know this now because you've got a lot more experience under your belt since then.
Yeah.
Everyone does that. The K&N is where you learn not to do, and I remember distinctly there was a moment, because I got on iRacing back in 2015. I've been a NASCAR guy my whole life and stuff like that. I've always, liked racing. And once I got onto iRacing, I immediately got hooked because it was like iRacing was kind of, let me just respond to this. By the way, for anyone interested in being a guest on this show, PM me through Discord is the best way to do it. I always put the Discord, the link to my Discord is always available in Twitch chat with _Discord command, and I also include it in the description below on these videos. But yeah, I remember, so when I got into iRacing, it was like, oh my gosh, this is the game that I've always had in my head is like, if someone could just make this, I'd play that and nothing else. And sure enough, I got into iRacing and it's like, I just basically stopped playing everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got Xbox as well, and it's I'll probably get rid of it this year. I've only started in iRacing since October, and it's all I ever think about.
Yeah. But so I remember a distinct moment. It was either in 2015 or 2016 where I had just made it up. So like you start out when you're racing the D class series and you're in second split in D class, which I'm in second split in NIS now, which is like the bottom guy would be the #1 car in most. In a lot of although lately actually the National Series for whatever reason has been getting a lot of 5 and 6K guys in there. That didn't used to happen. But I remember when I first got up into Top Split and really started running with those guys, there were a few moments where I was like, man, these guys are racing me close coming off of the corners. Man, like, what the heck is it? Not giving me any room. And then I realized I was like, oh.
Yeah.
That's how you have to race if you want to race at that level. And it just kind of clicked for me. It's like the reason why they're going up there and they're leaving you a car width of room, but they are leaving you exactly a car. They're not leaving you a car and a half. They're not leaving you 2 car widths. They're leaving you enough space to fit your car between them and the wall, and that's about it. And you've got to be good enough if you want to race them to race in that space or back out and yield the position to them. And once I started learning that, I was like, oh, okay, so I've got to figure out how to control my car in this space. That's what it takes to race at their level. And then also, because I've got free license to race them exactly like that. But if I'm going to do that, I better leave them that exact. I can't do that and put them in the wall. I got to go up there and leave them that exact amount of space. Yeah. But it was
still elbows out,
Yeah, no, it's definitely elbows out. But yeah, it was a cool realization. And it's always neat how you get, like, stuff clicks in tiers as you go up through the progression. And it's pretty neat how, obviously it's not real racing, but the competition is every bit as real as it is in a real race car. You're not actually getting hurt. You're not actually having to fix the race car. You're not hitting a wall. You're not feeling the real G-forces. But the competition that you have is every bit as real as it is in real life. And that's, I think, what keeps pulling us all back into iRacing.
And that podium I'm racing, again, that's when I first saw you racing the Elite Series, Truck Series. I was like, let me get under this. I always wanted to join the league, and that's where I'm in the street stocks now.
Nice. How are you doing in there?
I'm second at the moment.
It'd be hard to have a worse, year than I've been having in league racing.
I know.
It's just like every league across the board, I can't catch a break. But
I'm
yeah.
sure there'd be like you can actually like pull in all your clips of like the DRL league and the podium together, and then have like a 5-minute segment of
just
you
all crashing.
Yeah.
My haters would love it.
Yeah.
It's like I just put that up. Here you go. This is for the haters. It's just 10 minutes of John crashing. Enjoy. It probably it would shoot that
special one for you.
That would be immediately my most viewed video. But I've talked about it before. My most viewed video is one where I got into a fight with Mike Bruno back in 2017 or something like that over we got into a spat at Texas or something like that.
The latest one you had was the only DRL race I was involved in. I think it was at Talladega.
Oh gosh.
And then you lost on that as well.
I got mad at Ryan Berry on that one, man. Yeah, that was when I started that. It was after that one that I. Hey, Jaron, how's it going? Yeah, tell Mike I said hi, Jaron. Thank him for being the starring character in my most viewed video. But yeah, what was it? Yeah, that was at Talladega, and yeah, I was feeling the pressure because I think I was in the points lead coming into that race, so I was feeling the pressure of it. I was trying to work my way up front, and here comes Barry on the outside running 3 wide on I don't know, lap 10 or whatever it was. So I mean, it was Talladega racing. He, at the end of the day, I think that I did bounce up a little bit, but the only reason it caused a wreck was because he was so low down. But yeah, I lost it, and it was after that. I hate losing it on guys like that. Losing your temper on camera is never a good look. So that was the race where after that one, the next race I re-upped the pledge, and it was the race at Darlington in A fixed, and I ended up winning that one. So that was the inciting incident that started me doing the pledge on grid for every race.
Which kind of has helped. I mean, you don't lose your temper as often as you did, for sure.
The pledge definitely saves you, and plus also I can't emphasize enough how much having 70 or 100 people watching and judging every little micro action. You're on camera, there's nowhere to hide here. So that definitely has a tempering effect and a moderating effect. Especially since that's sort of the brand that I've been trying to build, is not being the guy who gets super angry and cusses people out over stuff and stuff like that. That works for some people. That I decided a long time ago that was not what I wanted my style and my brand to be. So
but yeah, for the podium. So there's guys in there with 6 KI rating. Matt Cooker's there, Blake Neer, Stevie Minson. Just
I know all those guys. They're all good drivers. Yeah, they're definitely serious drivers.
With stock cars, with the street stocks, the elbows are out. There's banging. And then for me, I'm not an aggressive driver, and now like you just said, I'm starting to learn. That's the way it's going to be in that kind of league, and running second now with only 6 races left.
That's a pretty good position, man.
Yeah,
how far out of the lead are you? You're only 2 points out?
Yeah.
Dude, go out there and win that thing, man.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's been consistent. I started at Michigan with street stocks. It's crazy, but I got into a wreck with Robert Arch early. And,
speaking of hard-nosed short track drivers.
Yeah, I know. It's a real mixed bag in there.
Yeah, man.
Hard-nosed guys. So I finished 20th there, and ever since then, I'm just trying to be consistent. So I finished a couple of top 5s, top 6, and then I finished second there at Charlotte in the Legends Oval. So, Matt Cocker has got 3 wins, and he's missed 1 race, but he's only 12 or 14 behind me. But I haven't run a race yet, but I've been consistently top 5, top 6. So, yeah, I'm really gonna go for this title. Like even competing was enough for me, but now since I'm up there, let's go for it. Why not?
Of course, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
competing's good enough until you're actually in the fight, and then it's like, well,
Mm.
now that I'm in here, I want to win this thing.
Yeah,
I get
and
you.
just let me just like round this whole interview off is where the person who was doing the commentating for Podium kept on calling me Colin on the chat
Yep.
and in the races. And I came top 3 in the last race, so I can actually finally tell her, listen, my name's not Colin, it's Caleb.
Caleb.
So it was. I definitely needed that second place.
Yeah, man. You gotta get in that interview booth. Get the sponsors some time.
That's right. Yeah, chest press and time. That's what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say you want to get racing. So
yeah. I actually don't know if I'm gonna race tonight. I think it's
really?
getting pretty late. We'll see.
Late.
We'll see. I might. It's 9:43 right now, so actually, if I stop right now, I can hop in and do a Richmond. So I might go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you guys would enjoy that. Spitz wants me to race. All right, so I got to get registered real quick. Thank you very much. Again, if you guys like this stuff, please be sure to drop something down in the comments and let me know. If you want to be a participant on a show like this, please message me and let me know, and I will get you in the rotation. My channel is twitch.tv/John_A_Theodore. If you want to check out Kalen's stuff, Kalen, I said it right?
Yeah,
Kalen.
you said it right.
Yeah, it's twitch.tv/Amsteriga. Kalen, thank you so much, man. This has been really interesting conversation. I think a lot of folks
cheers, John.
like
Been great.
Yeah, man. Have a good one.
All
Peace
right.
out.
Talk to you soon. Bye bye.